It's 6 o'clock. I'm going to call the meeting to order. All board members are present. The first item on our agenda is the October 28th public.
I'll make a motion to approve the October 28th, 2025 public meeting minutes.
Second by Jeff. Any changes, edits? All right. All those in favor of the motion, do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes accepted. And the next set is November 4th.
Brenda, finance training to number 28. Okay.
I'll make a motion to accept the November 4th, 2025 public meeting minutes.
Second. Motion and second. Discussion. All those in favor of the motion, do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. All right, our next meeting is next Tuesday. I believe it's a budget meeting specifically. We do not have a second board meeting this Monday.
It's on the calendar, we don't have any, we don't have a story.
Oh.
So it's something we want to discuss, so they have.
All right. So anyway, at the very least, next Tuesday, here at Belmont Elementary School. Public communication and correspondence. Anyone wishes to speak? Feel free. We will have a second public communication at the end of the meeting as well. All right. Next up, we do have two student representatives, Colby and Henry. You guys have reports, right? So if you want to start, let's start with Colby.
As every year, my reports are kind of on each grade, what they're doing. As usual, they're progressing with different activities, events, reading different books, going for different tests and stuff. Fifth grade is going through some classic events like economics and social studies, learning about some budgets, running some simple math operations and stuff, and reading some learning. So music and stuff, they are progressing in learning some music, and in health they're learning some classic pieces of health, three overall dimensions, boxes and silly part, and other good things to do. Sixth grade is learning about some history, with some Shackleton, learning some orienteering and its importance. Learning how to do it. They're doing some fun activities to test that out. Some math. Step action systems for sense. They are having they had a good large test recently on null study and shipping and chain of growth of characters and stuff. First grade test. It's first learning how to read different styles of Egypt and water. And health care learning by food groups, 60 session nutrition, and they're learning smart goals to improve their overall goals. Seventh grade, they are reading a classic book of the giver, writing story using text evidence, vocabulary, stuff directly from it, learning different pieces of math out that goes together mainly with integers and operations. They are learning about the first 13 colonies country, how we'll start it up together. And science, they are learning things about decomposition and how energy is produced by They are also learning how to play keyboards, learning about self-esteem, constant, and healthy ways to that eighth grade students are reading The Outsiders, doing several tests to learn character growth, watching a movie, trying to figure out how things are different, watch how things change throughout, study the characters right there, and compare them to things like songs and all that, and write how that connects. In eighth grade, there are some advanced classes, working on some algebra 1A and passing through eighth grade curriculum very quick in the first semester around. There are also a few eighth grade students taking a geometry class in high school. Their social studies learning about elected presidents. Everybody researches a separate president and writes an essay on them, writes resume, personal resume, so they are them. Science learning atomic theory, subatomic particles, moving into that periodic table. And then the green lab, learning about Enrollment Reports, where all of our programs from. Well, they're learning about stress, what's the effect it could have on you, how to manage it, and learning about mental illnesses and how to track those self-respect. And music, they are learning how to use ukuleles and accompany peers while playing them, sing along. And for events recently, we've had Veterans Day Assembly, honoring a lot of past veterans. Soon is coming up, the God Wall, food fundraiser. Our clubs, there is a lot of good success in things like band and chorus growing exponentially in numbers. And there's a couple of new clubs, a core club and a hiking club, which just started last year.
Thank you. Any have questions? Cool. Great job.
Well, we have some new board members this year. I'm just curious, explain how you go about getting this information. Because I remember you telling us that last year was really impressive.
Yep.
Can you share with us how you gather all of this information?
So with this information, I usually go to each teacher of each grade, gather what information I can from there. If any other students from different classes are wanting to explain what they're doing in that class or in the whole grade, that happens. That's actually how I got seventh grade. An entire class was willing to explain everything that they were doing in pretty good detail. Sometimes if I can't reach a teacher or students give very vague answers, but also email teachers reach out. Yes, for good answers. So. And then I record it all, write down what everybody says, and minimize it.
Thank you. We really appreciate the extra work that you're involved on.
All right, Henry, updates from the high school.
So FBLA just had their holiday fair. It was very successful. We had over 2,000 people come to see over 50 vendors. Each of the classes also had amazing stands, and each class got a profit from it. Then order one just finished, so we're halfway through the first semester. Me and some other students have noticed the new policy on late work and reception going from 10 days to 5 days has motivated students to complete their work on time more accurately because they have less time afterwards to redo it. And for sports, our fall sports are all over now. Majority making it past their regular seasons. Majority of athletes I've talked to enjoyed their seasons. They're excited to go on to winter sports. And then I've talked to a lot of students about the possible teacher cuts. They're worried about the larger class sizes, the lower quality of education, and class options to do it. With fewer teachers, classes will become overcrowded, making it harder for teachers to give quality feedback or help students who may extra work. This also means some classes with lower enrollment, like higher level or specialized courses, that for graduation. There's also been talk about not rehiring teachers, not rehiring positions after teachers retire, which you can completely eliminate that class and see where's grad retirement here. So if that position is retired, you would have a Spanish class. And it might, having teachers might save money now, but in the long run, it'll work. Students will the overall value of their education.
Thank you. Thank you. Questions from anyone? Thank you very much. We have the PTO Leadership Reports, and I'll just in the pocket.
Okay. Hi, I'm Crystal Bike. I'm the Vice President of PTO. I'm over here, sorry. So we, so far this year, have worked on, do you want me to stand up? Okay. We do every month meet the first Wednesday of every month, and anyone is welcome to come. Usually here in the library at the elementary school. We work towards fundraising to hit yearly goals so that we can help support the school with anything that they might be looking for that is not already considered in their year budget. And then we also work to provide some type of an activity once a month, whether it's a larger event like we just had our Fall Family Festival here at the school, and then we'll do other easier events that are like a movie night or something more simple like that. But we're always working towards fundraising, and we're always looking for ideas. We're open to anyone else that is looking to join with us. So if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer, but if not, I'll like move along.
So I did have one just basic question. Like, I was curious if the participation levels are still pretty strong with the
So I've been on it for about 3 years now, and when I first started it seemed like a lot, and we lost a lot that I think probably had kids that moved up to middle school. And then we were down to just board members. So the last year or so, it's been about 8 of us. And this year we had a few more added, so around 10. It is a small group of us, so we're always looking for volunteers, whether you can come to every meeting or not, or just whatever time you want to give or ideas you want to offer. If you see us on Facebook, we're always looking for extra support in any way someone wants to help out.
When are your meetings typically?
They're the first Wednesday of every month, unless otherwise noted, and we do put that on our Facebook page. It's BEST PTO. Thank you.
What a question.
Can I ask your name?
Crystal, bye.
Thank you. Anybody here from BMS or BHS from PTOs? We do have information in our packets as well. Questions from Michael that you can pass on? All right. Next up is the principal reports. First, we'll go with Ms. Shaw for Canterbury Elementary School.
Hello, everybody. So we've had a really busy, really positive first couple of months of school. Every student has had the opportunity to go on at least 2 field trips. Our fall clubs are off and running with excellent participation. We had a very successful Cherry Dale fundraiser. We exceeded our fundraising goal, which is going to help us partner with the PTO to bring an artist in residence to the school. Our tier 2 and tier 3 support for academics and behavior is in full swing. So we're just off to a really good start. Any questions?
One question is the K-3 learners, as well as the at-risk 4th graders, completed the DIBELS assessment.
Yes.
Why is it just the at-risk 4th grade and not
So that is in line with the state law, which requires that the assessment is completed with all students from K to third. And if a student is reading on or above grade level, we wouldn't need to do that assessment to confirm that there are no concerns. So any student who has a tier 2 support or a tier 3 support does take it if they're fourth and up. You're welcome.
Other questions?
Thank you.
Mr. Hill, Belmont Elementary.
How are you? I put several things, it's been a busy start of the year, but several things in my report that are going on here at Belmont Elementary, but I just want to highlight a couple of things. One is our new teachers. We were so lucky to hire 4 new teachers this year in an environment where, when I started here, we probably got 50 applications for one position. Now we get single-digit applications, sometimes only one. So the teachers we have hired are doing an incredible job, and so I just want to recognize them. Also, the Belmont Police Department and Fire Department have been super supportive of our school, despite the fact, the police department's been short-staffed and the fire department's at turnover. They continue to do extra things that they don't need to do here to support our kids, to just be a presence in the school to meet the kids. And our PTO rocks. I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Any questions? All right, you're off the hook.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. Belmont Middle School, Mr. Pope.
Hey, everyone. Good evening. I provided you with a lot of pictures, some really neat things happening around Belmont Middle School, so I'm happy to answer any questions with that. Just to highlight a couple of things, our PTO has just been outstanding. We have a great group of parents that are helping us out, and they recently got some money from the casino pieces, which you can see in my report. We were doing some things around the building, which is really nice, like our new sign out front if you haven't seen it yet. Kind of pops when you drive in, which is really nice. And then we've done a bunch of things out on our playground to support kids being active when they're outside, more appropriate at the middle school level. A walking trail, nice little volleyball court. We have a frisbee golf, things like that. Just a little funny aside, I was handed a note the other day from a student that was really thankful of all the new things that are happening out there because it's allowing them to try new things. They ended with, I really want to try tennis, so can you add a tennis court? So I'll work on that. Just a lot of great things, and just some pictures of student work, bulletin boards, positive messages, things like that. It's just a good place.
Questions? All right,
Thank you.
thank you. Last, Mr. Finch, high school.
Hello, everybody. I'll echo the sentiment from the other 3 buildings that it's been a very positive start. Henry did a great job talking about some of the positive things that we started our school year with. We have hit the end of our first quarter, so we've got an eligibility check. We've got a report card that's going to be coming, our progress report that's going to be coming out at the end of this week. Our fall sports had an unbelievable season once again. We had a number of teams make it into the postseason. We had individual athletes being recognized. One of the highlights was certainly our volleyball team made it to the semifinals against an Interlakes team that hadn't given up a match point in like 2 years. And we won the first one that night to really put them on the ropes. And a number of times, they just fought so great. And it was a really, really positive night. Our student section was huge. It was awesome. The arts at BHS, we are showing A Chicken Fried Murder this Friday and Saturday. It's the first Belmont High School theater production I think has jumped into the dinner theater side of things, so I'm very excited about that. We had a fall concert. Henry alluded to the holiday fair, and there's arts everywhere throughout that opportunity. It was really cool. We had some of our former students who are now business owners actually join us at the craft fair this year. Olivia Tremblay was one of them. It's really good. Her cookies are awesome. School counseling has been very active in Getting to Why, which is an initiative that Melissa Allen is heading up. Actually, Henry is involved in that as well. We had our PSATs. Lakes Region college fair, Apply New Hampshire Day, where students could apply for free to any New Hampshire college or university, all kinds of different programming. Our School to Career program is once again very active. Ms. Ingram is bringing students as many opportunities as she can to really personalize their opportunities. Brought them to an aerospace, it was at the airport in Laconia. Brought them to Spear Hospital for some students who were interested in getting in the medical field eventually. And kind of all behind the scenes with our faculty and staff, we continue to work on our alignment to ED 306, which is going to lead to some changes in the expectations for our freshmen class of 2030 and beyond, and certainly our NEAS accreditation process as well. So again, very, very positive start, and happy to answer any questions you might have.
Questions?
The casino night, was that a specific fundraiser casino night, or was that involved with Hampshire Charitable Game?
We didn't do casino one.
Oh, what did I say?
School.
Oh, that was, okay, never mind.
I do like to play blackjack. Is anybody who's interested in that?
Financial aid night,
Yeah.
that well attended?
Not as well as we like.
Yeah.
So there's been a couple of opportunities that we've had. It's 2 different times we brought in some groups, or we've actually done the presentations ourselves. Holly Kamiri is very, very active in that. Julie Pobrick as well. Bringing in some resources, for a lot of families, particularly those who this individual is going to be the first one going to a college or university. It's a pretty daunting, set of expectations. So we'll continue to send some resources out. Even the folks who weren't able to attend in person, some of those resources were sent out via email afterwards. But, we would have loved to have 100% participation. We kind of assume that you're not going to have that, but it was a couple of great evenings anyway. Really good information.
Other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up, we have the Director of Curriculum and Instruction report. We have information on the packet and lots of Excel spreadsheets.
Hello. So a couple of just things to note. First, again, with the implementation of Wisdom at K4 at our elementary schools, helps us to create a comprehensive literacy programming in conjunction with our other programs, Foundations Integrity. And we continue to support teachers with that implementation through summer and fall release time, summer professional learning work with our consultant. So again, continuing to provide that support so that we have a successful implementation. The other information that I provided for you is the New Hampshire SAS and STAR results from last year. Some important things to note, which were great. We're continuing to see improvement in English language arts. And we, as a district, are meeting or exceeding at different grade levels the state average. And most grades. And in math, they're very similar. And we're seeing some decrease in the proficiency gaps that we saw due to the pandemic. And in science, again, we are at the state average. STAR results show consistent with the SAS results, and again, showing improvement in proficiency in ELA or improvement in sustained performance there. And that was all for that information.
Questions?
So when the state presents its information to all the districts, do they have some type of a standard, or are they expressing concern where where state average in ELA is 50% or lower in ELA, or when you get into the math scores where some of the state averages is 30%, 35%, and then in our case, our low is we have one class at 16%. I struggle with being excited about being at or slightly above the state average when the state average is in my opinion, a little abysmal.
Which is it in the current year?
No, I mean, I'm looking
Oh.
at the range, the range that you sent us, from 21 to 25, but does the state address that, the state average being 50% north or south of that, or?
Nothing specific. Again, I think the focus on ELA and encouraging districts to the support with the science of reading, again, has helped to increase the overall population with us. And they have provided grants to support implementation for districts in that particular piece to help increase, obviously, the state average. Obviously, we'd like to be higher. I mean, again, but we are performing at and as opposed to below, so which I think is important to take note of. But as we're moving forward, the goal would be I would like to see us be higher than the state average. And I think we're on.
I guess that was my question was, like, if I'm looking at this, I'm looking at the state average with the goal of being above that, but what is the percentage goal? Like, I don't know what I'm looking at.
It's a moving target every year. So but that just we've been provided with that. And so they use that for determining if districts are at risk or schools are at risk. But there hasn't been anything specific about what can we do to increase. But yeah.
So is there any information with how New Hampshire is performing regionally within New England? Or do all of the states just have their own microcosm testing?
In general, New Hampshire does perform higher than most of the region, but and across the country. I don't have that off the top of my head.
Well, we don't use all the same assessment either, so the only thing we could look at is like what the data for the lab, which isn't required. I mean, I'm just saying, like, we can look at how the other states in the Northeast are doing, but they're not using the same assessment we are.
Right.
So,
The only thing we have basically is SAT or ACT, right? I mean, that's the only thing that everybody consistently takes together.
And
or data.
they would be that the nation's report card, and
National
they
assessment educational progress.
right. And they test 4th and 8th grade. Depends again. So like we have been chosen this year, CES, BES, and BMS for 4th grade. I'm not sure what specific subject has to be one, but they haven't identified that. I think we have our date for CES. I have to double check. I haven't gone back to check BES.
So one question I have is, in a perfect world, I would assume learning would be linear, right? So the percentages, you can track the class, or the 2021 testing of 3rd graders, 2022 when they're 4th graders, that percentage would get higher. I realize it doesn't necessarily work that way. So, that growth can kind of have ups and downs. Have you seen anything in the data that points to deficiencies at certain grade levels or, in math or in ELA that we may want to, as a district, concentrate more on?
So haven't been new, haven't done a huge deep dive other than where we are right now. I think one of the things looking at math and fluency. So one of the things that I'm working on is doing some professional development on fluency. And looking for K2 and 3 through 6, maybe even adding 7th and 8th grade in there for January. And so I think that's a piece in developing that number sense, those fundamental skills can impact students as they grow up. We're looking at, again, a few years ago, probably 4 years ago, we moved to Engage New York as a curriculum, working with Carolyn Worcester. So we have been seeing some improvement, but probably not as much as we would like. So certainly, again, continues to be an area of focus. Right now, focusing on implementation of our literacy programs, and then my goal would be to circle back and look at at the math.
Yeah.
You mentioned the achievement gap closing. You don't have the data on students with disabilities or any of the other subgroups currently, correct?
Not broken down in that way. I mean, it is available. But again, just looking for this report, was just looking at the general, overall district performance, not working down by district level.
So would you just generally say that gap is closing, or, I mean, it's dismal
It is.
across the
I can't quote exactly, but I think it is closing overall, so ideally, but again, I don't want to quote something and have it not be correct. That if, taking a look at that specific subgroups.
A little note on that though, Michelle, back in 2018, both Belmont Elementary School, Belmont Middle School were designated as additional targeted support improvement schools based on the subgroup of students with disabilities. Since then, 2 years ago, BES exited. So we're really proud of that. That's meaning that our students with disabilities are showing growth to the point where we are exited as designated schools. So that's a really good standing. And then we just recently were notified that Belmont Middle School has exited that status as well as in good standing. Again, that's a subgroup of students with disabilities, which means some great things are happening in schools with that specific subgroup.
Thank you.
Good questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, board member reports. You think yeah. Alice.
I actually have received a number of emails, over the last week, about people who really just want to be able to sort of view the budget process a little bit more. And I sort of wanted to talk to the board a little bit about maybe we can do something for some of the people in this audience. Because clearly we do, we have an audience here, and just talking about it and them not being able to see anything is a little difficult. So I sort of thought maybe we could do something like maybe we could cast onto the screen. I mean, I know part of the reason for this is because the documents aren't finalized. We don't want to publish something that's not finalized. But I think it would be really helpful for the community if we could maybe show something on the screen. We could obviously say, like, this is not a finalized document, but if we could do something like that to sort of help people maybe visualize and understand a little bit more, that might be helpful. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that makes sense. If we're talking about line, 27 on page 45, we're probably not gonna have that ready, but like if we have handouts, we're specifically talking about the handouts.
I think that's more what I was
That
thinking.
would be helpful to have, whether it's on paper for everybody or displayed and see.
And if we display it, it can just say, this is not a finalized document, so that we can kind of avoid, somebody takes a picture of it and posts it, it's not a finalized document, some of that. I just wanted to throw that out there.
Is that possible?
I just have to put it in sort of presentation mode and present it along the way. I will say that the document that you're going to review this evening for budget development is hot off the press as of 4 p.m. today. So trying to display that and so forth might not be an option. However, it's something we can look into. I will let the school board know that thought of this a few weeks ago, working with Kim Haley, my administrative assistant, who does a phenomenal job. She has clipped all of our budget development sections, not only if it's a straight workshop or it's our regular board meeting. She's clipped those into videos that we're going to send out information to the school community as to how to access that budget information specifically. So they're not having to sift all the way through a school board meeting to get the budget information. It is the actual board conversations around the budget. So just opening up, being transparent with the community and really just pinpointing the conversations around the budget. So that information is gonna go out, social media as well as, the town email listservs, to just give people an option to view the meetings, that way, so we're working on that.
All right, next on the agenda is the budget development section. So we can have the advisory board members come up. Michael, do they have?
So I have some new paperwork for you this evening. I'll go through that. I would let the board know, as well as the advisory budget committee, that as of, last Wednesday, started working on putting together potential cuts as requested by the board. So I've been working on that since we left actually our meeting on Tuesday last week. And Monday night, we received our health insurance rates. So basically, we came in at a higher percentage than we had hoped. So we had budgeted at 15% for health insurance increase. The increase came in at 17.7 to 21.1% for our health insurance increase, which means that the proposed operating budget has been increased by $247,490. So this first sheet shows that with that health insurance increase, the proposed operating budget is now at 7.09%. The total budget, proposed budget is 5.96% for an increase. And the default, of course, you have to add in those health insurance increases on the default as well. That's at a 7.39% increase for the operational budget and a 6.24% increase for the total budget. Again, the proposed operating budget is below the default. So unfortunately, our health insurance rates came in higher than we had anticipated. Therefore, as of yesterday morning, I had to make some adjustments to the list that I started putting together. So Debbie and I worked on the next page, which are basically cuts and percentages for each cut going down from the 4.09%. As I said, Debbie and I worked on this yesterday and finalized it as of this afternoon. So I'll go through these. Some of these items you have seen before, but I put them in categories, and I also wanted to make sure that you can see if you were to make those cuts, what the percentage increase would be with each individual cut. So the first at the top of the list are building improvements. That is all of the building improvements that are in the proposed operating budgets, meaning those that were not on the CIP list and those that are on the CIP list. That's $192,000. So basically, we would not be doing any of those building improvements for next year. Same thing with grounds, repair and maintenance, and new equipment. The repair and maintenance is the grading of the ball fields, as well as fixing the back gate here at BES and other items like that. New equipment is a weed whacker and some benches and lower and new basketball hoops. So between those two, building improvements is $192,000. Grounds, repair and maintenance, and new equipment, you push that off, it's $31,500. If you're going to do those cuts, it brings your budget down to 6.28% for an increase. Now, I put this at the top of the list because I would suggest that the board potentially takes early action on reserving these monies for out of our unreserved fund balance for this year so that we can still do those projects starting July 1st. The negative piece about that is it's less money that potentially would go back to the taxpayer to offset their taxes. And also it could make a shift in how we budget our default budget. However, went to the buildings and the grounds first for any potential cuts, knowing that there's potential for us to do those projects either out of using unreserved fund balance or pursuing grants for some of these projects.
Just to be clear, when you talk about the default budget, if we pulled that out of this budget, funded them a different way, when we go to look at a default budget next year, it would be lower, obviously, because that wasn't this year.
Right, because every year we put $100,000 in our default budget. And if we skip a year on doing that, then we're not showing consistency in our budgeting, therefore it would be very difficult to pass that through our default. And please jump in if you have questions along the way. Let's kick in the conversation. Board contracted services, we discussed that $12,000. That is to monitor our strategic plan. We could look at potentially bringing that in-house and trying to do that with use of our school district personnel, specifically myself in IT. Next, we talked about the school to work additional hours. That was on the original list. Administrators, this was brought up at our last meeting. Administrators' raises would be similar to what you see in the collective bargaining agreement for teachers for being off step, which is $1,325. However, that's not the full amount that a teacher would be receiving coming off of off step, because they have to take into consideration that the salary scale changes each year. But this is just the flat $1,325 for a flat increase for the administrators, which is less than what the teacher would receive. And then bringing the specialists down from 2.9 to 2%. That's, those together would be a savings of $38,557, which is 6% from increase. Support staff, I originally had in there 5%. If they were only to get their step on the salary scale, that's a cut of $70,141. Haven't had time to look at this very closely. However, we do know that some support staff members will be paying us to work here based on that health insurance increase.
You have two columns here, like we did the years. So for example, administrators, you mentioned at $38,557, and then the next step over is $284.
Yeah, so if you, the two column, the question was the two columns.
Yeah.
So the first column is the amount of that, what that cut represents.
Okay.
The next column, you'll see it adds up as you continue to go down.
Okay.
So that is what's being cut from the proposed operating budget of the $29,724,769.
Thank you.
So you see that number just increases as those additional cuts are made.
There's a bit, you talk about.
Oh, sorry. I'm the one complaining. I can't hear.
I just back up real quick. Could you explain again the administrators of 1325 and how that works?
So the collective bargaining agreement, the salary scale for our teachers, once a teacher is past step 10, we do not have step 11, step 12. It's a flat $1,325 increase that they will see the following school year. However, they're also potentially seeing a increase in the change in the salary schedule, because the 25-26 salary schedule is different than the 26-27 salary schedule. That salary schedule is more than the 25-26.
So basically the base pay goes up and then it's.
And then that 1325 is on top of the base pay.
Is the base pay consistent or is it?
Depends on the track. Between bachelor's 15, master's 15, master's 30.
So if I said It would be great if the administrator increased matched teachers. However you want to do it. There isn't a good way to do it.
We'd have to determine which track we would want that to represent.
I just thought it would.
Potentially, I would suggest if you were gonna do that, that it would be a minimum of a master's track, because all of our administrators have a master's degree or higher. And then for non-affiliated support staff, we had that originally at 2.9%, that would be at 2%, that's about $18,649. So with those, what I categorize as various cuts, that brings you to 5.75% for an increase in proposed operating budget. Any questions on the various cuts?
Are these, not that you want or I want any of this, but the way you have this set up, these aren't in order, correct? Or they are?
If I put this together, so the board can go through the exercise of where do you want to be along this list? Because I put this together based on what I feel has the least impact on our current employees and most importantly, our students.
Well, that's what I want to confirm. You did put this in priority
Yes.
order. Perfect. Thank you.
So to restate, is that loud enough? Okay. This is in priority level of pain. The further you go down the list, the more pain, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So you can hold this question, but when I look at these pay raises for this administrative staff, I would be curious why they were picked over, say, vacancies.
At the fourth line down, administrators raises and specialist raises, from this point forward, you're impacting people.
Okay.
Okay, so either people or students. And students feel the impact usually whenever you're having a negative impact on the people that are working with them directly.
So the vacancies you have listed here are relatively short term. If I go back a number of years, it was vacancies have been carried for a number of years. These are more recent vacancies. Is that correct?
So when I get into vacancies, I'll go over that, Jay.
Okay.
Any other questions on the various cuts? So next would be vacancies. This is next on the list because you're not, if you make this cut, you're not impacting current employees. These are vacant positions. The BMS General Special Ed Assistant, that's been on the vacancy list, this is your point, Jay, for 1,300 days. Haven't been able to fill it. And that's because of where that falls on the salary scale for assistants. It's low pay. Not to mention, just have a hard time finding special ed assistants in general. Next is, we have 4 one-to-one behavioral assistants that have been vacant for quite some time, very difficult to fill. This is a gamble because we haven't been able to fill it. If we were to cut these positions out of the budget, which is on the list as a cut, I would still keep these positions open. And if we were to fill them, we have to keep our eye on the budget very close to the next year. We potentially leave the budget freeze middle of the year. However, we're not carrying it as a vacancy and we're just going to manage our budget accordingly.
How can we cut a position that's required in an IEP?
My understanding is it doesn't impact compliance because you're cutting the monies out of the budget, but you're not cutting the position.
Correct, but I'm just saying, I want to reiterate what you said, like, we still have to provide this.
Right.
So we're providing it somehow, even though the position isn't full.
Yep, currently we're using other support staff to cover those positions.
So we are currently reading the IEPs.
No,
We are not.
no, the best we can, but not to the full tilt that we should be.
When you can't fill those positions, what happens?
We continue to do what we're doing now, which is utilizing other support staff to fill those roles.
Is that legal? I thought IEPs were like written like in stone.
It depends on if you're following the IEP, what it says. If you're following what it says, it doesn't say how you have to provide them.
Okay.
You have to provide the services that are required by that IEP. However, when you have a vacancy that you can't fill, you have to give your best faith effort in providing those services, and that's what we're doing.
Thank you.
So along that line of, I'm sorry,
No, I said thank you.
along that line of questioning for everybody, loud enough? Sorry. of course.
Yep, got it.
If the board decides they gotta make some hard choices here, I'll phrase it that way. The IEPs are being met. They're saying not as well as maybe they should be, but that's a calculus for the board to consider. If I phrased correctly what I just heard you say.
That's why I'm suggesting that if we're to make a cut, we cut vacant positions, however, we keep them open and we monitor our budget if we're able to hire for those positions. So we might not spend money in the budget in other areas in order to cover these positions.
Do we train the people that are asked to do this?
Yes.
So they're trained as they would be behavioral assistants? Are they
Time
compensated
is not always
differently?
great. Yes, they do. They are higher on the salary scale.
So it sounds to me that these special assistants cover the child, but the child doesn't necessarily have the same assistant every day
That's true.
because of the need to balance it. Who has?
Yeah, and there could be somebody that's out sick for that day and so forth, so they might have multiple people that are working with them on a regular basis, on a daily basis.
So while it works, it's not the best situation.
Right.
And that's not specific just to our school district. We're not the school district that is dealing with this issue. And hats off to our support staff, our administrators, and our teachers that are always shuffling the duties, doing the coverage and making sure the kids are getting what they need.
It's not a easy job, for either of them. Are these across all buildings? Is another question for those who hold vacancies.
Not all buildings, I believe 3 out of the 4. Then vacant special ed teacher, that's that, if you recall, in the original proposed operating budget, there were 3 special ed teacher vacancies. Proposed budget did not have 2 of those vacancies in there. This is the 3rd that we're gonna use potentially to fill to help with our middle and our high school caseloads. Again, it's not ideal. There's not a person in that position right now, and it's been very difficult to fill.
Not right now, but I am kind of curious, what is the, must be standard for caseloads? And then what our caseloads are? I think that's what data for us to consider. I don't need it right now, but just.
Yeah. There is no standard number of caseloads.
There's no required number.
Right.
The other piece is it's not just caseloads.
It's direct instruction.
My bigger concern is the specially designed instruction. That's part of those individualized education programs. I don't know how we're doing it now, being short 3. I'm just saying, short 3 special ed teachers. And 4 one-on-one behavioral assistants.
We actually take one of our special ed coordinator positions and turn that into a part-time coordinator, part-time teacher.
Have to.
Yeah, so we're managing what we can do. It's not ideal, however, doing the best that we can with the staffing lab.
So question, again, for the board's consideration, if you were to do this, you look at the total dollars for these vacancies. If you treated that as one pot of money and say, okay, what's the probability that I can fill all of these positions or some percentage of these positions in any given year? To your point, if I understood you correctly, you'd keep the position, but you could work the probabilities where you probably won't get stung if you can find somebody. But what I'm hearing you say is, right now, if you were to look over the last few years, your confidence in being able to fill all these positions sounds like it's not
Well, I'm not confident at all filling a special ed teacher position.
Okay.
That is a critical shortage area that has not improved over the past several years, and I don't anticipate it improving. Not to mention, it's very difficult now to get any type of, it's not even an option, an alternative certification for special education. It's very difficult to even get certified as a special ed teacher in the state of New Hampshire right now. So fewer people are going into the field of special education, and it's more difficult to get certified if you are in the field of education and you want to switch certifications. It's challenging. We have no applicants.
So it's not ideal, but what I hear you say, if you keep positions, but if you cut some composite amount of this money, the risk of less service now is low, and you might have some success in filling some of these positions.
The only positions that I would leave open and continuous to hope to fill would be the one-to-one behavioral assistants. I'm not looking at a special ed teacher position. If that's cut, it's cut. We would pull that opening.
So I'm just a little confused. So when the administrators first came and talked to us about the different cuts, et cetera, and the special ed teacher and some of the special ed cuts were kind of talked about, she said that there was less demand for the needs of services. But to me, it sounds like we still needed these positions to offer a better quality of service to our students. Is that accurate?
What we have is we have fewer students that are requiring services. However, the services that are required have increased. And that's usually through contracted services, some of the specialists such as OT, PT, speech.
So the amount of students requiring special needs has decreased services, but the services that the ones do require has increased.
Correct.
Just to make
Am I correct with that, Tanya?
Correct.
Yes.
Thank you.
And that's why our contracted service numbers are really high in our proposed operating budget, because those are contracted services that students require that we can't provide in district. So those are specialized positions.
How long is the special ed teacher position to be?
Oh, I don't know that off the top of my head.
We have it somewhere.
Yeah, the days, are the days on there?
Yeah, thank you.
$42 for one of them. Actually,
For the teacher, there's more than one?
He had already proposed cutting two.
There are two at 476 days.
Okay. Right.
So this would be a total of 3 special ed teachers cut.
yep, the total 3 vacancies that we have, all 3 of those we cut.
So then, just for my understanding, with the general special ed assistants, the behavior assistants, were there any additional ones proposed to be cut that aren't reflected here?
For special ed services?
Yes.
No.
Okay, so it's total of 3 teachers, 4 one-on-ones, and 1 special ed assistant.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, but the special ed assistant isn't required by an IEP.
Right,
So I
that,
just want to be clear.
No, I get that. I'm just, it was obviously something that was needed to
Right.
service a student. I know it's not required by an IEP, but I'm assuming they needed it, otherwise it wouldn't have been here to begin.
your general special ed assistant would not be written into IEP.
Right.
That's the term general, but it's the one-on-ones that will shared, 2-on-1s that.
But they all still provide services
They
to
all do.
students.
It's not an ideal situation. Any other questions there? So at this point, we're at 4.67%. We're increased down from 7.09. School resource officer is a vacancy. That's in our budget for $39,585. I know that the Belmont Police Department has had struggled trying to fill that position. We did have a candidate for that position, but they decided not to take the position. after interviewing. And then we also had a candidate that potentially would be coming to us, but I haven't heard as to whether they're following through that at this point. So I'm considered in a vacancy without any new information as to whether the Belmont Police Department has a candidate for that. Yeah, if we looked at this vacancy list, there isn't somebody in this position right now, therefore you're not impacting the person specifically.
He had retired at the end of last school year, correct?
Yes.
So this has been open since just a couple months.
This has been open since June.
Okay.
So this doesn't impact any person, but it does impact the town of Belmont, right? Probably assuming we're picking up like
we pick up the total cost. School district pays for that wage for that reason.
It's only the
Oh,
hours
part-time.
that they're, yeah.
Part-time position.
But it impacts the students and the administrators.
It impacts our district across
Right.
all 4 buildings. The school resource officer is building connections with families early on, as early as the elementary level, and working with those families and students all the way up through high school. There also are direct link to the court system, and they play a vital role in our school district by all means. Right now, we have to utilize, anytime we need an officer, we're pulling them off the force in their duty for that day to attend any school matters, which has an impact on both our town of Belmont Police Department and our Canterbury Police Department.
Probably also impacts the other schools, cop cars showing up, lights on probably. The students are probably all looking out the window.
Yeah, we don't tend to have the officers pull up, lights blaring and so forth.
Well, that's good.
It's just not our protocol. It's more important to have, our officers in our hallways and walking through our schools, just make connections with students, staff. So that would bring you to the 4.9%. I'm sorry, 4.53%. And then CES grade 5, no, that's not popular. However, that is a vacancy. If you were not to fill CES grade 5, that brings you to 4.22%, 27.09%.
So remind me again, for this school year, how many CES 5th grade students there are?
We do not have 5th grade CES.
Oh, you don't?
Not this year or last.
And how many are signed up for next year?
We have 16 out of 19 so far.
Let me rephrase that question. Did some folks have to go to the Belmont Elementary School because there wasn't a teacher here?
No.
Okay.
No, our 4th grade families last year chose to come to the middle school for 5th grade. So all of them did actually, so we didn't have any students.
It was a very small class last year. It
No,
was
I
an
remember
abnormally
that.
Small class last year.
I know
It was
last year.
9.
Okay.
Uh,
I have a question. So knowing that there's 16 students that are planning on staying, why does it, I know you put it on the last list, and now you put it back on this one. Why does it continue to be on the list when we already know that there's students staying?
That's a great question, Edgar. The reason why this is still on the list, because I've heard it multiple times around this table, that you have to differentiate between needs and wants. And this can be
Well, I
considered.
consider this a need, not a want.
However, we have a 5th grade class in Shaker Regional School District that students can go to. So people have different opinions as to what that is. However, this is a vacancy and students can attend 5th grade at Belmont Middle School. That's why it continues to be on the list. And I'd love it if the board would take some action on this one so we could potentially stop talking about it if necessary. However, it needs to be on this list because it's a vacancy and you're not impacting the current teacher. And our students have an option for 5th grade already in the district. I said it's not popular, Edgar, at all, but you have needs and wants, and some people consider it a need, some people consider it a want. It's a vacancy that we can we can house our students in fifth grade in Belmont Middle School, find success, it's not impacting the current teaching position.
So I just suggest this to the board as you look at this list, and obviously it'll be a discussion. The question that comes to my mind, if I was on the board, I'd ask, well, why would the CES grade 5 cuts, if the budget's set by the board, they want to go to 4.22% growth, why would you prioritize these other positions over a CES grade 5? That would be a question for the board if I was a board member.
No, I'm just trying to understand.
If they don't see it as a question to ask, okay.
I think you're basically asking, why did I put it here on this? At this
Yeah,
point
why
on
is
the
it there
list?
on that level of the list as opposed
Because
to
I know
some
people are really passionate about this, and I also feel that, CES, it's a K-5 school. You're impacting that configuration of that school where these other areas, we talked about this earlier, I'm not confident to fill these vacancies. Therefore, I would go with not filling a vacancy that I'm not confident we can fill, and carrying that money's in the budget.
No, my question's different. If I understood what you said, looking at this list, cutting a grounds position has more impact than cutting that CES grade 5 position.
Because it's a person already in it.
Because of the category, it's a vacant position.
Okay.
It's a vacant position. That's why.
So you put all vacant positions above anything else that currently have staff or anything, correct?
Yes, so from this point forward, you're now talking about current employees.
I mean, I understood
The
that.
board wanted to consider, if you're comfortable with a 4.67% increase, at that point, you're stopping at that special ed teacher vacancy. You can do that, and you're not impacting anything else after those 3 vacancies.
I did understand.
0.67% increase.
I did understand what you said. My point for the board is they weigh what to do here. I agree the pain of taking an active employee is hard to do, and I'm not suggesting to do it one way or the other. But if you know you got a class to fill for 5th grade next year, I don't know.
Yeah, and to that point, Jay, the board, you can do whatever you want with this list. Okay, you can say, I'm not in favor of this, I'd move this higher up, I'd bring this lower down, whatever. This is a starting point for your conversation and understanding potentially what the impact is, but also knowing what that percentage is. So I know some people have an idea in their mind where they want to be, and this is a list that's going to get you to that. We can make all kinds of adjustments to this list based on your suggestions and your opinions. If you give me those suggestions, those opinions this evening, I'll go back, readjust this list, and agree to you for our work session next Tuesday.
Can I just clarify for Michelle? There is the other vacancy down further, which is the 0.3 PE teacher, but that impacts somebody who's already employed.
So it's a little lower.
So that's why it's lower. So the ones above the CES grade 5 don't impact any current employees.
And it impacts the PES PE teacher.
Correct. So it impacts both the teacher, employee person, and the students.
But what you're saying, Michael, is, and I'm not, but we could look at this and go, we wanna cut lower on the list
Yes.
and keep something higher.
Absolutely, and then we'll go back and adjust these numbers based on what the board wants to do. So next, what I would call a support staff reduction in force, that's our one grounds position. We potentially contract out for the landscaping services, similar to what we do for CES and BES. We contract those services for BMS and BHS, that's landscaping, that's mowing and weed whacking. And you could reduce one of the 2 grounds positions. That position would become more of a lead maintenance position. It would still be responsible for all of those items that were on the list of items that we provided to everyone that are what our grounds crew does outside of landscaping. So that would be a savings of $39,585 if we would contract those services, as well as reduce one grounds position.
On the salaries you have listed here, this is the total cost to the district, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so
Salary
what is,
benefits.
for the benefit of the board, there were some comments made after the last meeting outside the, so we were discussing the employee PTT. So roughly, what's the burden rate on those? 30%, 40%? I'm asking that question so we have some sense of what we're trying to live off of.
I'm not sure what, you said burden rate.
Yeah.
What is that?
Well, in my world, we agree to a gross pay with employee, but that includes benefits, et cetera, that are taken out of their paycheck, or we pay on top of that. So whenever I price an employee, I negotiate what the employee was looking for a gross pay, and then we have a burden rate we have to pay for employer taxes, health insurance, et cetera. Typically, that runs 30 to 40%.
That includes, so this number, keep in mind, the 59,585 is the cut to the proposed operating budget, because you have to plug in the contracted service quote and take that off the cost of the employee.
Sorry, I'm looking down. I'm not saying you're gonna cut a teacher, but when folks look at these numbers, I think they're probably higher than what the actual employee gets in their paychecks, my guess.
Yes, but it says it includes the benefits
Right.
that the district also
Right.
pays.
Right.
And it's not a flat percentage. There are some things, FICA's a set percent, retirement's a set percent.
Right.
But the health and dental would be based on what the individual takes. If it's a new hire or replacement, then we budget a single. But if it's someone who's currently in-house, if I were to look at a RIF, I would have to calculate, okay, who's most likely to be RIFed,
But
and then look
I'm
at
not coming at it with riff. I'm coming at it because I'm not sure some folks, I'm making an assumption, maybe totally I'm right, but when I look at this, if I were the employer, I'd say, okay, I'm paying $116,000 for this person. The reality is they're getting paid 70 or 80. So when I start thinking about decisions or people overpaid, I always keep in mind what the employee's actually taking. And I only mention it because some folks may be thinking some of these pay rates are high. Granted, they're contract based, but I just kind of wanted to make sure folks understood that.
Yeah, and I think we try to make sure that every time we talk about it, we do say it's salary and benefits, it's
Yeah.
the total cost.
Okay.
So with this grounds position listed here, does that include like prepping our fields for game day stuff that will be contracted out?
No, that would be mowing our fields, however, it would be reduced to one maintenance position that would do the lining of the fields. That's not something our landscaping contracted service would do. Right. And this would be basically some of those items would also need support from our director of buildings and grounds, as well as our lead custodians in the schools.
Yeah, I think one of the things we talked about in buildings and grounds is if that happens, the one person who does the lines calls in sick that day, what is the backup plan? Like, do you have cross-training happening? That's also, if we went down that road, we have to.
Who would you propose to cross-train?
Probably the director of
The athletic director?
Director of building.
Director of
Oh.
building and grounds, as well as potentially lead custodians, but basically Steve would be taking on some of those roles.
I know our athletic director's already done most stuff.
Yeah.
So I don't think we need to cross-train him. Take that on.
The next category is co-curriculars and athletics. On this, there is the director of robotics, which is new this year, which is starting off. The board elected to put this position in for this year. That's a total of $10,819. So that oversees our robotics program in the district. Then the athletic trainer, which we had discussed, that's at $30,000, and that's under co-curricular, that's a salary. comes in as a contracted service. And then if you were to look at Appendix B and cut co-curriculars in half, that's $76,541. What those would be to be determined. We have to figure out specifically which co-curriculars we would cut out of Appendix B. That's to be determined. We don't know what that criteria would be right now. That's a number. And then for athletics, there could be a cut of $76,732 out of athletics. What that represents, without getting into specifics, is all of your elementary athletic programs, as well as your B teams and a couple other teams at the middle school and your JV teams at the high school.
Could you still function if they were volunteers? If like a volunteer volunteered, like I volunteered to coach the B team and I didn't get paid or anything. Can you have a JV team at the high school to volunteer?
No, no.
You can't accept parental
Well,
volunteers?
there's additional costs, right? Not just the volunteer.
Yeah, you can't rely on a volunteer to coach a JV team specifically at the high school level. Because you want consistent coaching and you want to make sure that that person is qualified in order to do so. So I wouldn't recommend going with volunteer for any of our sports.
But that includes like
In the high school.
uniforms, travel.
These are specific positions in Appendix B. Other costs associated with that are not in here, such as it would disrupt our uniform cycle. We wouldn't need as much money for transportation. Same thing with supplies and so forth. This is strictly Appendix B positions. None of those other costs.
So I missed a meeting. Michelle, I think, was the same meeting. Maybe that was, and I thought I went back and watched the whole thing, but was there discussion about, I thought we were just going to review the Appendix B.
Yeah,
Was there previous discussion about, that I missed, about cutting these in half, these topics?
we did not revisit that, and that's my fault because I didn't think we had said that. And the minutes did say we did talk about
Okay.
revisiting it. I think Mark mentioned
All right,
revisiting it. We did not. I thought we had not.
All right.
So
I was just feeling a little lost.
yeah, we did not revisit it.
And it's here on the list because from this point forward, you're talking about direct impact to academics. So if you were to, at the end of the co-curricular athletics section of this list, you're 3.38% of an increase, now from 7.09%. Then next is other vacancy. This is the 0.3 CESP teacher. That would be our Belmont Elementary School PE teacher would then become an itinerant, which would travel to CES in order to provide PE classes, CES. That impacts how much time the teacher is with PES students, as well as travel time is less time from students. Next section are the retirements that we talk about. So BHS Spanish, you can fill with the BMS Spanish, the world language teacher. Again, not an ideal situation, but you can fill that position with the BMS world language teacher.
I have a quick question about sorry to go back with CES PE teacher. Can you give a little bit of an explanation about what CES is doing right now? PE, I think the PE teachers vacancy, obviously, what are they doing right now?
Fill in as a substitute on a regular basis.
A substitute that knows anything about this.
Oh, no, it's a PE teacher knows
How often
well
do,
versed in teaching PE.
how often do the students receive PE classes at BES and CES?
BES is daily, CES is a day and a half. And that's specific and because of the total number of students.
But it's not, every student doesn't get PE every day.
No, but PE is offered every day at BES. Not every grade level gets PE every day. However, it's offered every day at BES.
How often does a student get it? Like, how often does a second grader get it?
Then I'm not sure. I'm not
Twice a
sure,
week.
I'm not sure of the schedule. And so I'm back into retirements. BMS 7th grade math is retirement, potentially filled out with a BHS teacher. And I'm just going to jump ahead here. You'll see that that would require a reduction in force. So those two positions, BHS Spanish and BMS 7th grade math, you would have to eliminate world language at the middle school as well as one math teacher at the high school in order to fill those retirement positions. 7th grade social studies is a retirement near fill with new hire. And I'll talk specifically about that. Potentially could fill that with a BHS, a high school social studies teacher. However, that would cut that department down to 3 social studies teachers out of 4. And with the new 8306 rules for minimum school approval, with the additional 5.5 credit requirement for graduation, we'd be hard pressed to be able to provide the opportunities to get all those credits with only 3 social studies teachers. And then BMS Music is a retirement, filled out with a new hire. And then now we're down to, and so at this point, we're at 3.48% for a potential increase. And this brings us into the, what I categorize as SREA RIF. And this is a reduction in force, specifically for our teachers. And I already talked about the first 2 at the top of this list. We have an instructional design coach that is part of the SREA. That's a position that works directly with our teachers and models lessons in the classrooms. That position, if we were to cut that, according to the RIF language, that position, that person will potentially bump an elementary teacher. Because again, it's based on seniority. You can see that's $14,919.
So we skipped over the math teacher? We went right from world language.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's
I
okay.
thought I talked about that when I talked about film retirements.
I'm just going through the list, but I just wanted to point something out. So when you get to the point of the math teacher, the total is 1.23 million. And if we take the almost 1 million increase in health insurance we were looking at already and add in the 200 plus, it comes just to about that.
Yes.
So we're looking at cutting all of these different things because our health insurance is going up $1.2 million.
Right.
I just want to make sure everyone see that this is what that looks like.
Right.
And that contract's up this year? The health insurance?
It was over
No, it's
10%.
it's not an annual contract.
You're thinking of the collective bargaining agreement.
Nope, no. I'm thinking about switching healthcare providers.
So we had talked,
I thought we talked about health
we didn't
trust.
talk about healthcare providers. I had said, could we look at what we offer for plans? But it's part of the collective bargaining agreement, as was indicated to us. So we wouldn't be able to have those conversations until.
That is part of that, so because switching to health trust would not be an option until the end of the year.
So I think following that thread, and I realize that may not be correct at this cycle, I don't know if it can be corrected, but thinking about the increase last year, this increase, which unfortunately I'm feeling it too, outside of my own healthcare, we're chasing diminishing returns. I mean, you keep having, not you, but we keep experiencing 10+% healthcare every year. We're going to reach an inflection point that the bulk of the towns can't pay for this. So I don't know what initiatives or anything are afoot to your point, you know, what options, if it's a state level or where this negotiation is going on, who's providing these healthcare plans.
Well, tied to it, Jay, that's the problem is that you know, we can't control what the health insurance providers or companies that oversee those services are going to charge on an annual basis. And they base those rates on our claims. So if we have a high rate of claims for 1 year, that boosts our health insurance rate for the following year. So if you have really high claims and expensive claims, that drives our rates every year, and we can't control that. We can't control the rates that they set. And everybody, even for private insurance, we can't control the rates that are provided. You can shop around, but that's very limited when it comes to municipalities and school districts as to what you can go with that's going to be able to handle this large of an employee base.
We had our first town budget committee meeting last Thursday, and I was very surprised to see that a handful of departments that we went through so far, again, totally different. It was like 5 or 6% through health trusts. So I was just looking at the other options as soon as that it is an option. I don't probably more employees, but the percentage is a percentage.
Well,
It's just rated differently. So there are districts that are getting 20%, 30% increases through health trust this year as well.
Yeah, but I think if you're talking that kind of growth, my guess is the same thing with my wife. So we can get insurance for her, well, she does, I'm on Medicare, but
It was a much.
what happens is you get a tiered bunch of plans to choose, and then depending which plan you choose, the employee starts paying more out of pocket. So, you know, it's not a pleasant situation. Our out-of-pocket cost is pretty high when we balance that, but that's what the company is doing to try to limit their healthcare costs.
I think it's important to note, Tracy, when we start talking about the school district in the town, which you're very well aware of, we're close to 300 employees in our school district. That's much fewer employees in the town. So your pool of potential claims is much smaller than what we might experience with a larger employee base. More claims, higher rates compared to.
And that's why I just mentioned percentage overall rather than exact dollar amounts, because you can't compare that, but it's a different animal that I would just suggest looking into to see what's.
Yeah, we've already started weighing the pros and cons of potentially switching over. Just as Debbie mentioned, there are other school districts, health trusts that are 20+% for a rate increase.
So I go back to, is there any move afoot, and maybe it's already set up this way, that there's tiered things that the employee can select, but the more insurance they want, that at some point they start paying more of their pocket. I mean, the math is not going to work going forward. And I mean, next year we'll be right back in the same situation. At some point, the system breaks.
Yeah, our employees they currently contribute to the health insurance. And that, what I mentioned earlier, that's support staff, it's step only. We will have employees that are paying us to work because of the health insurance. So they work a full week, but they get their paycheck every other week. Out of that paycheck, they're going to cut the school district a check for their health insurance.
So I guess the only question for the board is, have you looked at what the health insurance plans are? And for those of you who have private, spouses or something that are working for yourself, working in non-public industry, how the non-public industry is trying to balance these costs. I mean, if you've already looked at that, I'll be quiet. If you haven't, I would suggest taking a look at it.
So, right, I mean, I'm feeling it now, both my employees, because I run a nonprofit, as well as my husband's company. But the collective bargaining agreement, can't do anything about. In fact, I just pulled it
Right
up.
now,
Right now,
yeah.
but I can, so I'm only looking right now because I can't project out further than what we're working on now. But it actually says what it is, and it sets co-pays and all kinds of things that is very specific. So I
I
understand.
expected that answer, but you're coming up, Doesn't affect this budget year, you're stuck.
That's what I'm saying.
But next year, we're gonna want to do the same thing if something different is done, not done.
I don't disagree with you. I'm just saying, I'm only looking at what we're working on right now because I don't have another option.
We're gonna continue to look at it, to your point.
Yes.
We're just continue to investigate, you know, what we have for health insurance, but more importantly, what are those costs associated with it, knowing that many of those costs are out of our control.
So our health insurance costs go up $1.25 million. Oh, so one, I think that's how it comes in. Do you have any feel for, are the claims driving that 100%? Just.
Correct, yeah, that's all based on plan.
Yeah.
So I know it can't impact next year's budget, and I know that's what we're supposed to be discussing, but just to plant a seed, I know I talked a little bit about it last year. With all the increases that districts are seeing, has there been any additional discussion between districts or even superintendents to try and get, larger risk pools, across the entire state? And I know that there's the school trust and the school care, but as Debbie was saying, some districts are getting hit with a 20% increase, some districts are getting hit with a 10% increase. Rule of thumb is the larger your risk pool, the less increases you're gonna get. And then I know that there's other states that just say every teacher is part of this risk pool, which is part of this insurance plan. I just didn't know if that option may come up on the table at some point. But again, it's not going to affect next year's budget. I get it, and I'm done.
State of New Hampshire, local control is priority, so it's, people want to be able to handle and make decisions at the local level, particularly when it comes to health insurance or anything else. There is a bill on the table right now for consolidating SAUs across the state so that there is one SAU per county, if you will. That's being discussed right now, which you would be consolidating all the resources if that was to fly, but I don't see any cost savings
Does that
associated
stop
with that.
districts deciding to pull together for health insurance?
No, this would be a law that would pass and consolidate SAUs across the state. And there would be one SAU per county, other than Manchester and Nashua would have their own SAU.
How would that impact our district since we cross counties?
That would be, that's a good question. That's a good question. And there was a study committee that was formed based on the bill that did pass, and there is a majority report, the minority report that's been put together to move forward. If that was to happen, if they went with the majority report, the transition would be in 2028.
And it included like an elected superintendent.
Elected
right?
superintendent.
Based on county, not based on school district.
Right, and the SAU is more of a business office, and the superintendent role, such as curriculum instruction and all of the other roles, would fall on the building level principals and the local school board. So it basically becomes a regional, a county business office, if you will, with the decisions still at the local level. But you're now talking, the principal is gonna take on superintendent roles and still run a building, and try to be an instructional leader, not to mention you'd have to hire more resources, since you would need your own business office. Working out of a school or out of an office somewhere, you still have to manage the money that come for the county, from the state to the county, to the school district.
In response to Mark's question about pooled insurances, pooled insurance risk pools fall under the Secretary of State's office, and there were 4 that were recognized. 1 went out of business. They closed their doors. They did not have enough money to operate, so they went out.
Yep.
There's some confusion about what needs to be on reserve. So school care is following what the Secretary of State and statute says has to be held in reserves. So they're still dealing with those, but it's very difficult to get a risk pool started because you need so much invested.
Do we offer any health and wellness programs to staff, to
It's part of our-
nutritionists, things like
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, it's all part of our plan.
What if I meant like kind of not part of the cost we pay them, but if we had people come in separately and run programs, or is that what you mean when you say?
So there is an option with Cigna that schools can bring in someone for wellness programs, and they have done that in the past. We offer that after school sometimes for teachers. I'm not sure how well it was attended, but you're allowed so many that would come into the district. So you wouldn't get like one in every school every year. You may have to offer it at one school.
Just so I understand the question, is that more to reduce risk, basically? And
To reduce claims, yeah. So if you had like nutritionists come in and
But they have
mental
that
health people.
in the program, individuals can work with a nutritionist through the program at no cost, and they can do different things, call for coaching and things like that.
So I know we've gone down the health insurance lane for some time here. I want to get back to this. So here we left off with the instructional design coach. Again, to your point, Randy, that's $1.2 million at this point. Gets you to the 2.6% increase. And that brings us to middle school math lab, ELA lab, as well as that's 7, 8, and our 5, 6 math lab and ELA lab. Those are those positions. 3 out of those 4 positions we bumped an elementary teacher. And then next you get into the high school, which would be 1 science teacher, 1 English teacher, and 1 social studies teacher. Then I would leave, if you were to go all the way down to the bottom of this list, in the high school, that would leave you with 5 teachers in the math department, 4 teachers in all of the other departments. Social studies, science, and English. If you were to make all of these cuts, 0.65% increase. So that's what the board has to work with. At this point, let us know. We'll make some changes.
Before we solicit questions, I just want to make sure I'm clear on the timeline. So I can work it back. When do we need to have a vote on what we're bringing? Is that as of the 12th?
That's in December.
Because 12/9 is a board meeting. I guess we could do it during that point, but after that, I just want to make sure I know when I'm on the final decision on what we're doing.
Public hearings, the 15th. January.
Yeah.
Last day for petition warrant articles are December 9th.
No, 13th of January.
Oh, yeah, 15th of January.
But our last board meeting is December 9th, so the holiday. So,
You tend to vote on your budget prior to going into the holiday every year.
so we basically have 3 meetings. For going to
So any questions on what I've provided for you this evening, other than those that are working on us?
So, in the interest of time, if anybody wants to speak to some of this stuff, feel free, but obviously it's the first time we're fall scene, so I kind of want to like let it soak in a little bit. But we're gonna have more concrete plans by next meeting. We just went down to unless anybody disagrees, I'll do something sooner or right longer. I just want to make sure that I know when we have to have a decision by, so we know how many meetings we have enough to get them done. can't imagine we have more information requests, but if we do, we're running out of time.
We had talked last week about hearing the impact of what some of these cuts could look like from the building administrators. Is that still an opportunity?
Sure, they're here. Before we do that, I just want to note, so one other piece of information that came. The information that was provided this evening. Jill, this is something you requested. You can see that we put together the new position stipends and changes in contracts since 2017. You can see that's all of the positions, change in stipends, change in contracts since 2017. We also noted on here, full-time employee counts as special education support staff since 2021 school year. You can see our special education support staff has increased close to 21 positions in 5 years. That's significant. There's a cost associated with each one of those positions. So we talked earlier about not necessarily more students requiring services. We're talking about students requiring higher level services, if you will, and that represents new positions in our budget since 2021. Those 20 positions.
So I just want to say though, that if we can serve students in district in a least restricted environment, it's cheaper.
Absolutely.
So while I appreciate this, the alternative, if we do not have this, would mean an out of district placement, which we've already talked about runs in a lot more than these positions. So I just.
We're always fortunate when we keep students in district. It's a cost savings, but it's best for the student.
The other thing I'd add is I think there are some positions like maybe it's the BCBA, but it was a new position to our district at our cost, but it actually saved money.
That's right.
By not outsourcing.
That's right.
So there's a cost, but in the long run, actually, it's a savings money.
Because one placement costs that much money, so.
That BCBA position that Sean's referring to, we used to contract out for that service. We were able to bring in our own employee, which saved us money. So to your question, Randy, there's the administrative team is here to answer specific questions about some of the impacts that these cuts may have directly on the school. They could answer probably better than I can. If you have any specific questions or details, if you do, I'm going to ask the administrator to come up and sit right here and answer those questions. You have them.
I have a question for Mr. Hill. I don't know if I want you to sit down real quick, but anyway, feel free to sit down. But I guess I wanted to get your feedback on parent feedback based on licenses at the Belmont Elementary School. We have a certain number of teachers or the grade level, but that fluctuates based on student numbers.
Right.
So in some years, I might have 18 kids in my class. In some years, I might have 20 in my class. I guess I'm curious what the feedback, has there been feedback from parents about concerns about my kid's going to third grade next year and there's only 3 teachers, so I assume the student to teacher ratio is going to be higher. Has there been any? What did you
The only feedback I dealt with was last year, as you know, we had a large student grad class and we had to do that for teachers weren't able to hire fit this week in December. So, there was some concern expressed about that. This year, we just did a Title I survey during teacher conferences. There was a lot of positive feedback. We had to fit teacher first grade to try to help that in the same place. Other than that, there hasn't been.
That 5th grade wasn't a new position. Well, it's not 5th position, it wasn't a new position. It was basically pulling from another grade level.
Right.
And so that takes an upper grade level. It has less teachers. Student teacher ratio goes up.
Yes, so you pulled the teacher from fourth grade this year, like that's actually relatively small, so there's 57 students.
Yeah.
So I think there's, the class has 18 in fourth grade this year. The first grade class has 17 students, so. Yeah, they're adding the fifth teacher, you still have 14 or 15. But
Any feedback from parents of fourth graders about?
Is that generally the size of classes in the, I'm gonna say, 2, 3, 4, I think about 15 class?
there's 6 for like 16 a year. I'm trying to keep it to the teens.
One of the things that was proposed was cutting half of the co-curriculars and then the athletics for elementary. Do you know approximately like how many students would be impacted by your, and it's okay if you don't, if they cut all of the athletics for BES?
We have hundreds of kids that participate in athletics, so it's significant.
About hundreds. Thank you.
I mean, anybody that's been to the motion night, kids stand up when they participated in this, you participate in this. I mean, for the most part, every student stood up for something a year ago. So to answer your question myself, I would say 95 to.
Be similar to CES as well.
So please don't send me hate mail for asking what's going to be an unpleasant question. What happens if there's no fifth grade here next year? How do you absorb 16 students? Or can you?
That would happen at Belmont, if they go to Belmont Middle School.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We don't have fifth grade at Belmont.
Jay,
Okay.
yeah,
All right, well,
that would be
I'll save my
January
question.
students, those students that are currently in fourth grade would go to Belmont Middle School, they can handle that number of additional fifth grade students in middle school. That's
So there's the commuting and the community's desire to keep here. I understand the commuting impact from last year's discussion. As far as the ability to still offer reasonable quality instruction, the student-teacher ratio would still be low enough? Okay.
Hi, I'm not fully familiar with some of the positions that you have at your school, so I'm just gonna ask you questions because I'm just like, and I'm sure that there's a lot of people that watch online that don't know either. So can you help me understand like what the ABLE teacher does? And is that part of like the IDPs or is that, like, what does that person do?
ABLE, that stands for Academic and Behavioral Learning Environment. That's the teacher that works with students with challenges in behavior.
Okay.
So they provide them social emotional support. They teach those kids how to regulate their behaviors, how to advocate for themselves, and respond to frustration and things like that. And the goal is to do as much of that as possible in class, so the kids can be in class as much as possible.
Yeah. And there's probably a lot of value to doing that in the earlier years instead of having it go unaddressed till like junior high. Can you help me understand the role of guidance in your school and perhaps how much the guidance person has like FaceTime with kids on a daily basis?
Yeah, school counselors teach each class every week.
Okay.
But they also they provide tier 1, tier 2, and some tier 3 support. Meaning they teach to all students in
Right.
class. And they also meet in small groups to address specific needs. And they meet with individual students as well.
Okay, and the other one I wanted to ask about was library, because what's great about this binder is it sorts by these functions, which is awesome. But what I did is I tried to look at it from the program perspective, and some of the things that struck me was like the guidance budget and like the library. So I just want to understand, like for library, how much FaceTime does the library personnel have with students like on a daily basis?
They have a full class schedule, so students are in there, having class every week. And they do provide, if they have time, like for instance, they volunteer essentially their free time to provide opportunities for students to like recess, do extra things as well. So
But they're like teaching library skills and this is your library time but they're not doing that 8 hours a day because the kids are learning math and science and they recess and gym and lunch. So the librarian's not the library staff isn't teaching library skills 8 hours a day, about how much are they teaching on an average day to students in that capacity?
They teach 5 classes a day.
Okay, but students are coming in and they're teaching library skills and they're taking out library books. Okay,
Because it's a special, right? I mean, or whatever you call it now, but it's all students go.
Yeah.
That's the same in Canterbury.
It's in the same, like as PE, art, and music, libraries with special at any time.
I want to bring it back to sort of the budget discussion as well, because you start talking about library media specialists, you're required to have a library media specialist in your building for any building that's over 300 students.
oh, absolutely,
So
but
I
maybe,
want to make sure that we drive it back to budget discussions. And I can pipe in and let you know what's required and what's not. It's not even on the table for discussion as to whether we're looking at reducing it or.
well, I think nobody's even proposing that we cut library or guidance. I just want to better understand, because maybe library could be like 1 day a week instead, or maybe it's accessed on a weekly basis, but it's not accessible on a daily basis. Now, ever since the year 2000, there's so much more research and information available online. So much research that students do is right on their Chromebooks. I think there's value, and we should continue to have hard copy and library services. I think that's important. But with the advent of everything online and all the kids having their Chromebooks, maybe we could consider the possibility, instead of sacrificing a 7th or 8th grade or 5th grade teacher, maybe we could reduce the library accessibility, but still make it available every week, but not every day. You know what I mean? Like, maybe there's opportunities for us to share resources for guidance or library amongst the schools so that we can keep our teaching staff. Because I was just really surprised how much we spend on library and how much we spend on guidance. I was really surprised when you look at it compared to other things. I was surprised.
So our library media specialist at the BES also serves CES. That position is already in itinerary, flows between the two buildings.
Yeah,
So
good.
we're already utilizing that one person for the two buildings.
Yeah.
So something like that, is that when you said required, is that, is that a requirement, or is that just a recommendation from the state? And if it is a requirement and we don't offer it, what's the consequence?
So that it is a requirement, because in the wording, these are the G300 rules, which are the minimum standards for school approval. You potentially could not be approved as a public school in the state of New Hampshire if you don't meet these requirements. And this one specifically for library media specialists doesn't say may provide, it says shall provide. It's very specific, which means it's a requirement. So in those rules, you always look for the ones that say shall, the school board shall provide. It is the board providing those. So those are considered required positions for minimum school approval. Is there an ED 300 police office that comes to all the schools? No. However, we have to report what our staffing is on an annual basis, and it can be audited as to what you aren't providing, that you should be providing according to those ED 300. So it could jeopardize your school approval.
Right, and I asked that question because I know that there's small districts throughout the state that do not have the capacity to offer all those minimum standards. And none of them lose their district status or their Title II funds, or those types of consequences that the state puts up.
Well, maybe we can pool resources on some of these other items so as to spare actual teachers that get a lot of face time every day. That's what I'm hoping to try to achieve.
I consider our unified arts teachers, they are classroom teachers that are providing content and curriculum to students on a daily basis. I don't see them as any less important than a classroom teacher. They're driving something, and some of those classes are very, very important to some of our students specifically. We want to make sure that our unified arts teachers are not categorized somewhere different than our classroom teachers, and their curriculum is just as important.
Oh, agreed. Because I'm more of a noob, I want to understand how much physical face time they're getting with students as opposed to making things neat and tidy or preparing for the next class or doing reviews of prior classes for grading, you know? The FaceTime, that's important for me to understand.
I would say, so we had a presentation last spring, with the library media specialist, here at BES. It's not just, I'm saying just in air quotes, about physical books. So the things they were doing were tied to like the wisdom curriculum, and it was carryover skills with research and using these different research skills. So my take, based on what you're saying, is it's well beyond like going in and checking out books. They were creating actual books or projects. So it's a carryover of the learning, and the library media specialist was teaching and then helping them present that to class. So
things like citations as well,
Right.
at very, very young ages, things that they'll need.
Right, but for me, I just want to know, are they like 3 hours a day with different groups of kids,
My
or like,
understanding is like,
you know, 8 hours a
have a
day?
full schedule.
Yes.
It's probably a break somewhere for,
Data prep, just like all of the teachers do, but they're teaching just the same as any other classroom teacher. Their load is equivalent.
Thanks for explaining those positions, thank you.
I was trying to ask the overall question. I don't know if he was done. I just wanted to ask the board members so that we're not waiting until December 12th or whenever the last meeting is that they're gonna vote on. So that we're not waiting till that point. Can the board members speak to where they sit when they look at the budget going up $1.9 million potentially as of right now? Again, the question is, do you want the taxpayers and the public to just pay that, or you're looking, or are you willing to work on something to try to lower that? I just want to hear, because we can sit every meeting, sit here and talk about the different things and take key decisions that trigger people, but if all we're doing is just waiting till the last minute, and then if it's time to vote, we don't have enough time, then it's over, and it goes to the public and nothing was done, like has happened before. I just want to hear from the board members. What are you willing to do?
I'm willing to say, one, boy, it'd be really nice to know what the tax impact is for all of this stuff we're doing. Because I still don't know what that is. But two, I am not interested in riffing teachers. I want to get as low as we can without like cutting people. Now, if we have vacancies, can we move people around? Yeah, I might be interested in it. But I'm not going to give you a specific number because, to be honest with you, I just saw this tonight. And there's a part of me that's like, well, maybe this and this, maybe not this, but I couldn't talk. But I do not want to cut people. I deal with that in my work life quite often, and sucks. But two, I think we as a board should be looking at every vacancy and having a say, or giving some feedback to the superintendent as far as whether that position gets filled. Because, like we talked about, 83% of the budget is salary and benefits. And if, 9 years ago, our student numbers were, I have them somewhere, but 260 students lower, then they're lower now. We should be looking at, are there vacancies that we don't fill? Can we move people around? But I do not like the idea of rec. But again, I don't know. I guess that takes me to the the SRA is down to 3.15, but I don't know. I mean, I wanted to be at 2% when this started. And I'm looking at this going, wow, this is a lot to count, and we're at 4%. That still sucks, but I'd be more inclined to go higher than the 2 I originally, based on what I'm seeing here. From the get-go, I wanted no more than 2%. I am hedging now a little bit higher. I guess my question to you would be, what would you like?
Well,
If it were up to you, what would you say?
well, originally we were talking about removing positions and try to streamline the infrastructure, right? We weren't aware that when you're trying to remove a high school teacher, all of a sudden a middle school teacher gets impacted, or I'm not sure why that is happening like that, if it's written somewhere that has to go like that. Since when you're trying to look at the high school only, right? Because there's points in the day that there's points that the school population at high school goes down, and then it comes back up. So you don't have 348 students constantly there. So that's why when we're talking about certain amount of teachers, see if we can reduce the quantity or other positions. I know I brought up, and it wasn't popular when I brought up the question between what is the difference between a principal and a vice principal duties and what they do. But I think that something needs to be done because, yes, next year there will be another increase of the healthcare that is coming, and there's people with kids that will be leaving because they can no longer afford to live here. And if that means the population keeps going down because you're losing families with kids, you're gonna find yourself in a deeper hole because of it.
You could also lose families with kids if we make some of these cuts. They could choose to send their kids to private school. The school district, the schools in our communities are the foundations of our communities. You know, you see it at sporting events, you see alumni come. If your school tanks, your property values tank. No one wants to move here.
Yes, and at the same time, there's people, that would love to see the separation of Canterbury and Belmont. So that way you have people that given the ability to send their kids to their own school of choice. But what we're trying to do here is try to keep public education in place. And at this rate, you're gonna expedite those decisions for people to be like, okay, of course, they might be told that it'd be less expensive if we separate from Belmont until then later they may see the impact of actually the cost, but you're creating a position here for people in which they might make the decisions that it hurts them later in the future. So, but as far as the taxpayer and people being able to live here, people won't be able to afford it soon. Soon you're gonna be seeing $34, $35, $37 million, and tax is gonna be unsustainable for people to pay.
So I've talked to people that understand. I've asked them about this. I've explained the contractual obligations, and they told me they get it. The health insurance issue is much bigger than us, and they understood. So I don't think you speak for everyone when you make those statements.
No, I don't speak for everyone, but I think people say that they understand, the cost of things. I understand the cost of things. I'm not saying that I don't understand the cost. I'm saying where you're the local level here, we can control the budget and make decisions of how you have things to impact the budget. But I mean, a lot of people say they understand things until all of a sudden they find themselves leaving.
You're saying that we can control the budget. There is so much in this budget that we absolutely cannot control. There's 11% that we have to play with that directly affects the students and teachers.
I totally disagree.
It's
That's
like, so I think are you in favor of RIFs?
I'm in
Is that what
favor
you're
of
saying?
restructuring the district so that we can lower the budget.
So are you in favor of the RIFs is what I'm asking.
Is rates only related to teachers? I'm not talking just about teachers. Just like I said earlier, I was bringing up the topic of the concept of principals and vice principals. Okay, everybody defended the vice principals. My question is, if the vice principal is very visible doing stuff, what is the principal doing? Can we have one principal for multiple schools if they're only doing a certain amount of work that's what I was trying to understand what the difference is in their workload. So I'm just trying to think of it, see if we can structure the district in a different way to try to have an impact on the budget.
Yeah, and to build on that.
That's what it comes down for me, is providing services and classes to students to better their future and not trying to destroy the school district. Because I understand, yes, Canterbury 2-year mark where the separation committee can come open again is coming up. And if you're presenting increases like this to people, it's a lot easier for them to say, yeah, go ahead, let's move on.
So to build on that, I think it's super important for the board to have a strategic direction. And you can attack that incrementally, partly through this budget, but partly by establishing the will to when the contract negotiations are open this summer, like you have a strategic plan. And that part of that is going to be discussing bing, 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 bing as part of the negotiations. And we're working on a 3 or 5 year arc. And this is where we're trying to get to. Instead of like always like, and yeah, what happens this year, well, with this budget will happen. But you're moving towards something. It can, because I agree with everybody else that this patchwork approach is not working to the point where the system will break. And you need a strategic direction, even if you implement it incrementally. I think the public will support that. They just want to see that you're going somewhere instead of like feeling like Band-Aids.
So I'll just add, I mean, we definitely, I was there for many of them, worked on a strategic plan, strategic direction. We had a lot of volunteers, public, members of the school district. No, it did not say the collective bargaining was only going to be this, or the health insurance is going to be this. It wasn't that granular. We talked about what we want to be as a school district as we move forward, what we want to see for deliverables, success rates, things like that. Feedback from surveys that we want to implement, which I don't know if we're going to do now. We had that position that we're talking about cutting. Probably just have us create the surveys, or let's say you.
It's all stuff for this year.
But we have something. So to say we don't have a strategic direction, what do we have? Well, I can answer that, definitely.
Yeah, budget,
but it doesn't
monetarily.
I will say, no, yeah, so it doesn't say the budget will only increase 1% or 2%. What it talks about was, likely you correct me if I'm wrong, we did have a section in there about fiscal responsibility to the taxpayer, because that was one of the sections I sat on, was I was concerned about what the taxpayer point of view was going to be for the school district as we continue on, because we all know costs for everything's going up. So we talked about that. It's in the strategic direction, but to say granularly this or that, it doesn't. It's a big picture strategic direction like this.
Jay, you were, correct me if I'm wrong, you saw information, was it today, that had a.
Yeah, I don't know if it's ad or what.
Right, so.
Maybe Tracy can answer that. Somebody took a screenshot, and I think it was on the Belmont Facebook page, or I don't know if it was on the web page. But the initial budgets proposed were over an 11% increase for this year.
I
Looked like official.
did not bring that book with me.
Can you?
Yeah,
I saw
so I mean, for purposes of conversation, if we're looking at, I mean, 7%, if everything passes for the district, and Jay, I think you were talking about in the area of around 5 for the town, or Tracy, you were talking about individual department heads.
I was talking about the cost solely of health insurance. But as far as the town goes, we have to remember one thing now. We're finishing up year 2 on a default. So any budget that we present to you is going to look like a large increase because we are still working on, what was that, a 2023 budget?
Right.
So when you are doing a new one, whenever we're going forward, it's going to look worse and worse every time we present one.
So that's where I'm getting at, is that it's not, in as much as we want to have blinders on, it's not just the school, it's the school and the town. So just the school portion, and I know, Sean, you said you wanted to see what the tax impact would be, and we can't have an exact number, but we should be able to get, fairly close if you look at an average I feel that my house is pretty average. I think it's assessed at around 550,000. You know, so you crunch all those numbers with the current, current tax rate at a 7%, school budget, increase. It's almost $600. You add the town, the town piece to it, and you're looking at right around a 10%, 10% increase. Are we, if we all ask ourselves and we look ourselves in the, in the mirror and say, are we okay with presenting, potentially between the school and the town, a 10% increase? For me, that's a little over $900. Is that doable? Is it not doable? So, Alice, when you ask, who are we in favor of a, of a RIF? No, I'm not in favor of a RIF. However, it's irresponsible for us to look at the current class sizes and load and student loads and not consider a reduction in force. And as Edkett said, that reduction in force doesn't necessarily just have to be classroom teachers. I mean, while I think the proposal in the news for having a consolidated SAUs per county, I think is completely unrealistic. Is it realistic for 2 and 3 and maybe 4 districts to start consolidating SAUs? Yes, I think it's quite possible. Is that going to do anything for next year's budget? No, it's not. But when you're looking at those class numbers, and I think the first night that Sean said, "Hey, bring some ideas to the to the table," we're running we have very, very similar student numbers from late 80s and early 90s, but we have considerable more, higher numbers of faculty and staff. Are we offering more of the high level classes? Yep, we absolutely are. Could we start taking some of those high end classes that have small numbers in consolidating them? I believe we can, or probably we should. But having a 7% increase at the school, a 5% increase at the town, looking at a $900 to $1,000 increase for an average house. Are we okay floating that to the to the taxpayers? I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I'm not comfortable with that, but I'm also not not comfortable standing on a soapbox right now, speaking to a bunch of faculty members here at this district, because I'm potentially impacting, where all of you are at. So that's not a fun conversation either, but that's why we get the big bucks of $1,800 a year to make all the decisions.
So I wanted to add something to what Jennifer said. Last year people absorbed it. This year they would probably absorb it when you tell them this. But I think I go back to, and maybe it's my ignorance for not reading the Shaker School Board meeting minutes and stuff, but is there some thought, do you need to put some money in the budget to be able to do, how do you figure out how to slow the growth rate year over year? I mean, these growth rates really, I think I explained a couple of years ago what happens to 10%. Pretty quickly, sooner than you think, you're more than double your property taxes. So that same discussion at the end of the last year, or the same discussion at this point last year, that doesn't solve this year's budget problem, because I realize it's baked in costs. What I don't understand is, to your point, what are the points in the strategy for renegotiating some of these agreements? I heard what we said about insurance, and all I heard is says we can't do anything about it. Well, I can tell you right now, if they keep going at these rates, this is going to be a harder discussion each year, because health insurance is going to kill your ability, kill all of our ability to pay for this stuff. I understand it's a hard problem, but to sit here and say we can't do anything about it.
So I didn't say you couldn't do anything about it, but like in my nonprofit, I have to make a decision and we have to pass certain things on to employees. I can't do that right now. Sorry for those who are.
Well, I mean, I understand.
But that's what I'm saying. Look, I can't affect. And for us as a board, when we go into negotiations, we will have points to talk about what we want to do in negotiations. So I just want to say, I don't think it's fair to say we have no points about what we want to go in with. It's just not anything we can affect right this
Well-
very second.
Technically, you could say, hey, teachers union, we'd love to open up the contract and start over with health insurance.
I'm not
Realistic.
suggesting, I understand we're stuck with what we have to most degree if you decide not to use staff. I get it.
Until this summer though, right? Because that's when the CBA opens up?
Well, we start negotiations, so it'll be presented if we reach an agreement the following March.
Oh, so 2 years.
Yep.
Right, we still have another year to go through.
And I don't think it's just the CBA. I mean, I assume the administrative staff's probably going through the same insurance maybe, right? Maybe
We
not.
go through school care, but we have a different plan.
Okay.
Michael.
I'd just like to make a point. So if we look at this list, the board could opt to go with a 4.67% increase. Okay, see where you are? And I think Tracy, you made this point, that maybe it was the last meeting or before, you need to show the community that you're making some sort of effort in bringing that down. I want you to keep in mind, this is the point I want to make, at 4.67%, you have eliminated 3 teaching positions and 5 support staff positions to get to that point. At 4.6%. So if the board is comfortable at 4.6%, you are showing effort that you have reduced our teaching staff by 3 positions and our support staff by 5. Just want to make that point.
That's a really good point. Yeah.
At 4.6%.
Because you're showing due diligence and that you're listening and taking action. One of the things that I noticed when I grouped this whole binder by category, another thing that kind of stood out is pretty expensive was the administration cost. Every administrator I've met, I've loved, and I see value in their work, but it's like almost $2 million, 1.986 is the proposed. And what drives me is I'm trying to look for things that don't have as much student face time, and like, let's preserve the teachers that are doing a lot of face time. Is there any wiggle room at all within the administration bucket? It's like 6% of the budget. It's more than what we spend on high school math, athletics, science, English, and social studies combined, is what our administration costs are. So is there any wiggle room within that pool of money to streamline or create efficiencies or?
So I first want to address the perception that our administrators are not having face time with students. This perception that administrators sit in their office and basically do administrative duties is absolutely false. Administrators are with students on a daily basis for the majority of the day, particularly our associate principals. And our principals are working with students and their families on a daily basis every day. It's the administrative tasks that they're not able to get to in a timely manner because of the fact that they are working with students and with families. So this perception that I feel like you're trying to convey or at least prove a point with is absolutely false.
Now, I do see them walking the halls, and I think it's great. What I'm trying to say is they're not like teaching a class, and we have a whole SAU office building with people too, and you understand what's going on there, and I don't. So I'm just asking the question, is there room to create efficiencies within your arm of the budget so that it wouldn't impact, jostling high school teachers and middle school teachers and all that?
I will say that we run the most efficient administrative support that you're going to find in the school district with the staffing that we have.
Yeah.
And wasn't there in this various cuts at the top, there was a cut, says administrators changing the.
Yes, the original proposal was 2.9% increase. This is a flat increase of $1,325. So.
And the administration that she's talking about, it's not just principals, vice principals. What does that include?
That includes our business administrator, myself. It includes director of student services, director of curriculum and instruction, director of buildings and grounds, all principals, all associate principals, athletic director, as well as food service director.
Yeah, that helps. That was a great question.
And director of information technology.
Yeah.
All departments that need an administrator in order to run. Trust me, we went a year without a director of information technology. We couldn't fill it, and I was the director of information technology. I don't ever want to do that again. Let's just say it did not work.
I suspect our customers agree with you.
Yes.
I'd just like to say, would it be possible for the principal of BES to come up and tell us a little bit about his day and how the associate principal works with him? So we can hear real life situations of what his day is like rather than theoretical.
So I guess my only concern is it going to lead to budget change? Because I want to make sure that we stay on task with this. What I want to talk about is the budget. As much as I'd love to hear about Mr. Hill's day, unless we're talking about cutting Mr. Hill, I don't know what we're gaining.
I thought it would help the people that are not very familiar with the school setting to better understand the day-to-day application.
I think if we do that, we should also bring up Aaron to talk about what it's like being a principal without an assistant principal.
That was just.
But it's, again, bringing it back to the budget and principal positions goes back to my point I was making earlier, is a required position in a school regardless of the number of students that are in there.
So we have talked about the associate principals and positions. So if I want to speak Mr. Hill can talk about his day, but we would have interest in the associate principal because of the problems.
So you'd have to pick a specific day because it varies every day. Yesterday was not the same as today.
Do we have an associate principal here? Is anyone? Anyone?
Yeah, Kelly's here.
Why don't we ask her what she does?
Yeah,
I think it'd be important for, if you're gonna do that, Ben speak to Ben and Kelly. I mean, it's a team effort, so I still don't understand the exercise we're talking about budget. If that's on the table, then yes, but.
If it's on the table, yes. Is it on the table?
Committee members
I'm
are asking.
I'm not so concerned about those two positions. I'm just asking the question that the administration bucket is bigger than what we spend on high school math, science, English, and social studies. And does that make sense? Does that make sense? Like in prioritization?
I was gonna ask, now that they've clarified the number of department heads that fall into that, does it make more sense to you?
It does make more sense.
And it's all schools.
Yes, and those are higher salaries than most because of the responsibilities an administrator has, not to mention the multiple degrees it takes to get certified in those areas. So you're talking about people that have high degrees, multiple degrees, as well as higher responsibilities and high responsibilities. Therefore, the pay is equivalent to the responsibility as well as the education that goes with the certification.
Don't they often work more days than the regular teacher
It's
as
a
well?
24/7 job year round. I'm not kidding.
No, but over
Every
summertime
day.
too. Yeah.
You're on call every day.
Budget stuff. I will say I sit in an interesting position because this school in particular, not just the whole district, huge place in my heart. However, being part of the town as a whole, I see our community changing tremendously. I don't know if you drive around Belmont a lot. It's almost like we're being gentrified a little bit, if you look around. All the homes coming up are $700,000, $800,000 builder grade. And people moving in aren't bringing their families, they're retiring here. And they don't care that their taxes are the same as a house valued twice as much in Guilford. Because they're getting a new home and they don't have kids and they don't want to participate in any of this stuff. To be truthful. If you drive down 140 towards Tilton, all the homes that are going up for sale are from our long-term families they're taking advantage of the market and their generations below them are not affording the taxes. If you look so for me, Mr. Tercy's job is to present you with a budget that's best for this is his job, it's his company, if you think of it as a business, and his staff. Being his board of directors, for lack of a bit better description, you should be having him justify pretty much every dollar that's in there. Because your responsibility is not just to the students, it's to your entire community, including the taxpayers, and what that brings back. Because somebody said last week that you were here for the students. You are representing each your own community of Belmont and Canterbury, and what that brings back, right? So for me, coming from the community, it bothers me that there's been positions open for 1,300 days that have been funded for that long. So you're pulling funds from the community and it's not going in. Or not going to where it was for, and it's not coming back to the tax base. Those are the
sometimes it does, just to be clear, like, there is money every year.
a part of it can come back, not always the same. But that's the things that I wanted to come and see and pass along. And yes, it's the healthcare situation is nothing that we can solve here at this table. But to continue to go, we can't do anything and keep handing over these increases by the year. Your kids aren't going to live in this community at that rate because it's too expensive. We need to make not we, because I don't have a vote, a good faith effort because I'm not saying there's any talk, any rumors, but dodged a bullet last year when somebody stood up and made a motion.
Well, I already know that's pointing.
Right, so that very well could happen. And what happens when they say, hey, we want to change your budget to whatever, and they give you a flat amount? What the heck happens then? So those are some of these are, and Mr. Tercey did his job. Some of it, the retirements, quite frankly, the Spanish teacher to me at the high school is never going to be left empty in my book. I would never advocate for that because we need to do that for our kids. So I probably wouldn't have, if I was in his job, would not have submitted that to you. I would have said, she's retiring, but that's not an option. We need to support this for our students. Maybe talk about the middle school level, but I'm not so sure. But there are definitely some good things here that I think the board needs to look deep and start to do some of their community work and what can be done to help offset them.
So a couple points, Tracy, you look under that Spanish position at the high school, fills with the middle school.
Right. The first time it wasn't.
But this is listed out here. And to your point, if there is a motion made on the floor deliberative to reduce our budget, let's say that this board settles in at 4.67%, and somebody stands up at the deliberative session and says, cut it by $1 million, here's your playbook. If they ask what would be cut, if that was the case, it's here. Anywhere below that 4.667% is here. So we've already gone through that exercise at this point. And I agree that there's a strong potential that that will happen, and we can speak to what impact that would be.
So with all due respect, these are your list. I guess my question is for the board would be, if you look through any other departments in here, is there any other place that somebody sees a little something that would be added to this list?
I guess my concern, just me personally, I've been on the board longer than everybody, but I don't know what the schools are doing individually. I don't work in the schools. I don't know if this position does anything, if they sit around all day. At some point, I have to trust the person that we supervise to bring what he believes is the course of action.
I guess I'm talking more like the IT stuff and the other departments that were here when we flipped through that might not have been touched. I'm just wondering if you're all great with all of those things.
So, again, we don't go, like you said at the last meeting, we don't go line by line as far as, 1,500, 500, 250, whatever I said.
I just look back at them and like the IT budget, I don't see much in it. I'm not setting you up for something. I'm just wondering if anybody sees anything I don't. Is there anything?
Yeah, so what I look at is, what did we spend last year? And I know Mike works on, is what is proposed matching what we've spent. I have to make an assumption that if we spend money on software, we're spending money on software again next year. That dollar amount going to be the same or around the same amount. we don't get into like each individual line. We all obviously have plenty of opportunities to ask about each.
And look at software line in general, we look at usage of that software. So if we're purchasing the software 1 year, and we're not seeing the usage, we're not seeing the benefit when it comes to cost, we cut that.
So I think back to Tracy's point, your point's a broad point. It's actually the same question I was asking Randy here quietly, because I wasn't here. You know, to her point, within the deliberative session, that motion and say cut $1 million or $2 million carries, then, you know, do you start rethinking, do I want to get rid of these teachers and these other positions, or do you start going to take another look at the rest of the budget and say, what's less painful? And it sounds like feedback coming from you all is, I don't mean us now, but you've already made that decision. So now that's what's left to cut. And I will tell you, I don't know who the content of this audience is. I am noticing it's bigger than last time. I'm also noticing a lot more commentary and paying attention in the Belmont Facebook page. So it'll be an interesting deliberative session over the previous ones I've attended. See if suddenly there's a lot more interest than there's been in the past. Interesting to see. But quite clearly something's changing that I'm seeing from stuff I'm looking at. And I see the gentrification you're talking about. I got a funny story to break up to tell you about that.
So I guess I was just wondering if anybody else made any notes in their book when they went through like that.
I thought the whole purpose of this exercise of pulling all of these was because when we spoke, we went through line by line. Wasn't it determined that any cuts that we made weren't going to measure up? They weren't going to be enough, which is why we're looking at staffing. Am I wrong?
No, I think
Some of them came right out of the departments.
there are
Just, I
some
was wondering if anybody
things
else had any.
I've marked up and I can follow up on, but yeah, I mean, to the bigger degree, like, we actually want to see a percentage in decrease. The 1,500 here or there isn't going to make a difference. What Michael's proposing is what we're going to notice.
Not proposing.
True.
My proposal is 7%.
If we were to cut the budget to a certain percentage amount, these are what
Or these are amended based upon request.
on the percentage.
Something that I would like to see for next year's budget, I do the budget advisory committee again, is I would like to see the original budget. What all the administrators and departments had proposed before you went through them and said, okay, like this, and this. Because I think what happens is a lot of time when the budget gets to us, you've gone and nickeled and dimed them. So it's not that much fun for us because they justify everything. They go through, they talk to us, they're very well prepared. We ask questions and it's usually all very logical. A lot of them have significant decreases, but you've done a lot of this legwork ahead anticipating these contractual increases. So I think that that might be an important thing for future years.
Almost like a requested budget and a superintendent's budget.
No, but I think it's important to say, you know, this is what they originally wanted. This is what I've already gone ahead.
Just so that they can already see what you.
Are you requesting that for this year, Randy?
No. I think in future years.
I just asked a question. So I had the luxury of at one point sitting over in Michael's area and Debbie's area on helping a student. I got to see a little interaction here, but you're asking extra work. What's the outcome? Are you just trying to understand that Michael's making a 9 then, or they've done a deep dive, his team done a deep dive from their initial request to get to this? If that's where you're at, maybe it's a one-time exercise. I don't mean to put down what you're asking.
Oh, yeah, no.
It's work on their part to do that. It's already work to do these changes, you know.
So what concerns me is that we, the board, not we, asked him to look at all these different things, the unstaffed positions, the Appendix B, people retiring, not filled in, et cetera. And in doing so, you've essentially put a target on people's backs. They know that if it comes down to it, their positions, there's a list here. Like there are people in this audience who are impacted on this list. And I think that a lot of times we don't look at the work that he did to get here. He obviously didn't want to make this list. This probably is not great for morale. But I think it's important to see the effort that he puts in before he even gets to you guys.
So you're asking him to put more hours and effort?
No, in the future years, they come to you with a proposed budget and then you work with them to get it done. So there's a number that we don't see that's much bigger than what we do see at the beginning.
So are you just asking for a total number broken by two categories? Look at the detailed line item breakdown like this. So, I mean,
No, just the overall, like a general number. It was originally 1, 2, 3, and we knocked that, not for this year, but in future years, I think if you have that information available.
Michelle, go ahead.
So, I am not comfortable, I said this last time, I wasn't comfortable with whatever it was before the increase in health insurance. I do want some time to look this over, I want to bring it down, not really to go all the way down. I am concerned, I'll just say that I'd like more information on if we did step only for support staff. Do we know I want to know for sure how many people will be paying it, because I'm not okay with that.
Yeah, Debbie and I were talking about that. We would need until next Tuesday to get an understanding. Practice.
And then to your question, Tracy, the only thing I wondered about is we're gutting buildings and grounds, which generally speaking, I'm okay with, based on what buildings and grounds said. It sounds awful, but do we look at not replacing uniforms this year also? Which gets you, I know that's not gonna be popular, but it's $20,000, so if it avoided something, I did rough math this year, so if we're gonna gut one proposal, that's better than 1,000. I don't know what to do, but I'm just saying, it doesn't make sense to have some of those things in there.
And what we talked about for the building improvements and the grounds piece is that the board took early action. So fund balance is probably projects started running.
Oh, I understand that, but my piece is if I'm looking at potential risks, why would I be purchasing uniforms? I'm just telling you, like, from my point of view, I'm thinking, because you asked the question. Thank you. So that's what I mean, Michael. I don't want to nickel and dime because I went and looked at furniture. I'm like, I'm not going to question $800 here and $50 there, but I'm just saying from a practical standpoint, do we need new uniforms right away? So you asked, so that's right. That's where I'm at. I do want some time to take a look at some of this because but that's, Edgar, you also asked where I was at. I'm not in favor of a 7.9% increase. So,
Thank you.
to answer your question, but I'm also, I said last time, I want to show that we're doing due diligence and, I don't know what that number is. I don't have a number.
Further discussion?
I have a question just in general. The CES PE teacher, art and music, do they already have full-time teachers for both of those at CES?
Part-time.
The art teacher used to be between till.
The art teacher was an itinerant, then we added it as a part-time
Yeah.
position.
On that list.
22, 23.
Oh, more recent than I thought. I thought again I would be showing my age if I remembered that.
The reasons that itinerant wasn't.
All right, anything else? You can meet budget wise? next week.
I had
Thank you for coming out. So we're gonna pay money to have snow removal?
Didn't we got there?
Or an inch.
That's for the big multiplier.
Community service, 75 students with shovels.
No, you
Call it in class.
All right, under new business, we have award snow removal bid. Information's in the packet. My only question is, you only have one proposal. How does this compare to last year?
So last year, in the 1 to 6 category, it's $370 more. In the 7 to 12, it's $389 more. There was a 12 to 12 plus category, and this one is broken down. So 12 to 18 inches is $408 more. There was no 18 and over and then more. That was 2,800 and they've broken it down a little bit more. The straight salt, there's no change in that, and the sand and salt is $25 more than what we got last year.
Is there a time frame for the snow event? Is it a 24-hour period or is it
Yeah.
longer?
Yeah, it's 24-hour period.
So there's only one proposal here, and I know I've asked this question before. Are we doing our due diligence when it comes to like putting this out there for the community, people to bid on, give us quotes? I know you said we're just getting 3 quotes, but.
So what I did was I looked up online every landscape company and snow removal company in the area. And I sent each one of those the proposal. We put it in the newspaper. I sent it to all of the schools to send out in their weekly newsletters, and I sent it to both towns to be included in their newsletters as well. I got one proposal. And the cutoff, I got several responses that they had already filled their schedule for the year, so they weren't gonna be able to bid, but asked to be included in futures. And then on Monday, I got 2 calls saying, oh, is it too late to put a bid in? Yeah, it was closed last Wednesday. So, I sent it out, I think it was 7 different companies that I specifically sent it out to. And then we have it in other areas as well.
Can I ask when, I'm just curious when you started looking, maybe like this might be, I think, for future years, when we start earlier, if everybody's got their schedule filled, want to get in there, maybe starting that process earlier.
And that's a very good point, and for some reason, I remembered it came in as a 3-year bid. I forgot about the fact that the board had only awarded a 2-year bid to the company that we currently have. And Steve came to me and said, we don't have anyone to plow this year. So I'm gonna put it on my radar earlier this time.
I'll make a proposal to accept the 2025, 2026 snow season snow removal bid from KRM Landscapes.
It's 2 years, 25 through 27.
So 25, 26, and then 26, 27.
I'm afraid to ask, but I'll ask it. The towns don't have any interest in doing this. Like the town of Belmont, the town of Canterbury, they would love
Canterbury plows.
for us. What about Belmont?
They used to a million years ago.
They didn't do all the schools, they would do a swipe through, and then they told us, because they used to come up School Street and they would do the SAU parking lot. But then they told us that the school line, the street ended, so they weren't going to do anything beyond that anymore, because they could only do the streets.
Can't imagine it with classic.
No.
Particularly with the short drivers.
Yes. All right, we have a motion and a second. Direct discussion. All those in favor of the motion? So by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Deborah. Anything else?
Yeah.
And the superintendent report. Michael provided emergency superintendent succession.
So every year we notify the board for information if something was to happen, or any deputies next in charge, and their focus. That would be a team effort once a.
It's informational.
Yes.
Anything else from you, Michael? All right, on the horizon. I guess I'll ask, are we meeting November 25th? We want to be.
Well, you should.
That doesn't done the budget. I mean, do I want to be in November? No, where we can do.
Do we still have an interest in for Appendix B?
We have an interest in going to Appendix B. I want to hear.
I'd love to do.
Yes.
I mean, if we've got people that think we're not doing enough to cut things, not that I wanna cut things, but if it shows that we're doing our due diligence.
I too don't think that I'm in favor of cutting things, but again, that Kate, I like what you said there. If that shows that we're doing our due diligence, and hey, maybe we do find something. So
Sure. All right. We'll move forward.
So if we do that, I just want to say we should talk about like what our numbers are, because I know Debbie we have the numbers, but I don't know what, when you say go through Appendix B, are you looking at enrollment in the clubs? Or are you, I'm not in favor of us deciding what the students, unless it's based on data, like I don't like this club, so
You're our representative.
yeah.
At Joe B committee. Did that committee have data as members?
Yeah, we have some data, we don't have all of the data, but we have a lot of the data.
Which is why we recommended.
And some of the clubs,
What
you're
was the
not gonna
clubs?
have, I don't know if you're gonna go by how many participants in the club,
That's what.
but some of them, by nature of the club, you're not gonna have that many participants.
So again, I understand what you're saying, I just think we have to be careful, and when we're going through it, we need to agree to some degree what we're looking at it for. Is it numbers, is it? That's all I'm asking.
Well, I mean, I know I've spoke to it before. If we're looking at trying to control our budget growth, I think an appropriate thing to look at with the Appendix B is to make a determination of what clubs, activities, or anything in there does it have, or I'm looking at it, does it have academic value? If the answer is no, you know, what other value could it bring? And we make a decision on whether or not things stay or not.
So are you looking at just the co-curricular stuff, or is that actually
Appendix B goes all.
Yeah, it
Athletics, but
would
then
be
having-
all of it. I don't think we should, you know, discriminate, you know, with you know, one of the other. I mean, I would like, I mean, if I had to choose between athletics and clubs and activities, I'm gonna I would err on the side of clubs and activities before we looked at, anything having to do with athletics. But, I mean, I don't think that we should discriminate by, when we take a look at it at first.
I would say that I don't know if I can get this from this type of meeting, but on the list of cuts, potentially, is co-curriculums. Yeah. And on things.
Like why you look at that number down to what would be cut, or did you that number, and have that given the next Tuesday?
Yeah.
Athletics. Co-curriculars and all the criteria to determine what you would cut, what you wouldn't cut, that's the difficult piece.
Yeah.
So athletics, I have that list for you to get to next Tuesday.
So then if you have that list for us, then maybe we can limit the scope to the co-curriculars?
Right, yeah.
No, he doesn't have the co-curriculars.
No, the scope of what we're looking at, if we're looking at this.
But just to drive the discussion though, just so I have an idea, we're gonna look at this list of co-curriculars, with all the co-curriculars, maybe all students, numbers, whatever. What are we looking for?
Yeah, Mark, do you mind just kind of elaborating?
Sure.
What you mean about
Yep.
whether or not it has academic value? I think I'd like to understand that.
Yep. So I'll pick on something that my daughter liked very, very much, and that was D&D. I played D&D when I was in middle school as well. Still have friends as adults that do it. I don't participate in it as an adult, but I don't see a whole lot of academic value in D&D being brought to the table. So, so I'm looking at it through that lens. Same with, chess or checkers. And I mean, you can make an argument with chess, probably not so much of an argument with checkers. So that, again, that's the lens that I would be looking.
But aren't they looking they're looking for a dollar amount? They want, people are looking at the taxes. So wouldn't it make more sense to look at the high dollar items? I mean, you mentioned D&D, maybe I'm misunderstanding, but I don't think they would spend a lot of money.
Well, I forget. I mean, it was $700 here, $1,000 there. I mean, but it's a fairly extensive list.
Yeah. I guess if people want to do it, I won't obviously disagree, but I don't see it the same way you do. So to me, these clubs and extracurriculars have defined academic. I actually see the cooperative play, the social emotional pieces and those things as having value, particularly for students who need connections and aren't getting it somewhere else. So just so you know where I'm coming at it, it's not, it needs to be X from my lens. And I'm not really interested in cutting 700 here and 700 there. But again, that's where I'm coming from.
I think the consensus is well looking. So you can have that information from, I guess, already from the appendix B. Whether it's the meeting on the 18th or the 25th, I'm not sure I really care. It's ready. Do whatever. 18th.
We don't have anything but criteria set instead of how to determine that number would be, so we don't have any for it.
I think we're prepared for that. I think we're prepared for you to not have that. I think just the athletic portion is.
I mean, we do have some data in terms of
participation counts. But some of the participation counts were so early in the year that they're not real. It's not reflective of what the true count was on a regular basis, on an annual basis. Because kids were still signing.
Possible just to break it down by the elementary school, what their co-curricular total is, like we see by school. Because if we're looking at it, like, we're cutting all athletics at the elementary schools, what is it gonna cost to cut all co-curriculars as well? So,
Arrow.
see, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Just of this, whole topic was, there's nothing on the 25th. Typically that would be regular board meeting, but if we want to continue talking about the budget, just basically now, 25th. That'll definitely substitute. All right, anything else we want to add on the horizon? All right, enrollment report. I have a request for the enrollment report. In my research, the enrollment report used to look a lot different. It actually had Belmont Elementary School, and then it said under one, it listed the classes and the sizes. I can provide a sample of 9 years. I would like to go back to that rather than a block, because I can see we have 71 Belmont Elementary first graders. I don't know what the class sizes are for 71. I don't know how many first grade classes there are.
Yeah.
I just think that's good information to have.
Ben said there's 5.
So as of November 1st, our district total is 1,104 students. 3 fewer students than October.
Questions? All right, volunteer list.
Make a motion to accept the volunteer list. Noted changes. Noted changes. Highlighted.
Second.
Get that correct. All those in favor, say aye. Aye, opposed? Passes. Internal policy.
All right, I know Michelle is going to have things to say about this one. These, because she was not at the law policy meeting, I'm just gonna. However, these changes that we are presenting are to, things more in line with what the New Hampshire School Boards Association, has presented, and changes that have been made for certain requirements. There is one that we're proposing to remove, which is IHBAA for gifted and talented programs. This is just a first review, so Michelle, go for it.
So on the evaluation requirements for children with specific learning disabilities, I'm recommending that the lines 32 through 77, because it's not included in the School Boards Association's sample policy. And actually, the reason I recommend removing it is if we don't want to do that, then I recommend and would advocate for a rewrite of this section, because some are the IEP team's responsibilities, not just Shaker Regional School District. But given that we don't need it in there,
Top.
I think favor, let's move those on.
So what, 36, line 36?
32.
32.
Where it talks about, so
Yep.
this policy is related specifically to evaluation requirements for children with specific learning disabilities. And the required policy is anything lines 30 and above. The bottom part, 32 through 77, is not required to be part of this policy. If we want to separate it to describe our evaluation procedures and determining eligibility, we could do that. But for example, plans on line 37, plans the evaluation with a group that includes the parent. That should say convenes the IEP team, which includes the parent. It's not, I mean, theoretically with a group, but I'm not okay not spelling out the IEP team. And then, for example, line 34, it says we're responsible for evaluating children who may be eligible for early intervention. We're not responsible for evaluating children for early intervention. So early intervention is birth to age 3. And that is by a different. So I don't think we need to get into any of this because it's not required as part of the policy.
So, is there value learning to alone to say a parent or somebody like that? So if there is, I guess I don't want to necessarily get rid of information just because like the sample call doesn't happen.
So I looked up, this would be a question for Tanya, but I know we have to have them. I just couldn't find them. We're supposed to have special education policies and procedures. And it would outline this. So that's somewhere. I just don't know where.
Yeah, so I guess my other follow-up was, could we do what you're saying, and take that information, make sure it's accurate?
We should already have it because we're going through.
Put it in rules and procedures.
No, I'm saying it's probably have it somewhere is my point. Right?
Yeah, so I was just looking at where you want to make those corrections.
Well, what I'm saying is, and I didn't go through all of this, I can. But lines 32 through 77 aren't required for this policy. So I'm not sure why it's in there.
They're not required, but it was recommended that we put them in there, so.
Then I recommend we rewrite it to be compliant with the New Hampshire.
With
state
adding for the IEPT.
Well, anywhere where it's an IEPT decision, not Shaker Regional Schools.
No, and I would agree with that change. That's, yes.
So that's all I'm saying. And I'm just not sure if I were a parent, didn't have a child with a specific learning disability, I don't know that I would know to go to this policy because it's around specific learning disability, but we could pull out, we have a policy around evaluation requirements for special education or something. I'm just saying it's a mismatch.
So then would you like to move this back to policy? So that we
Yes.
can rewrite that? Okay.
That's a good idea. And I think we travel.
Yeah, we definitely missed you on this one.
I see your point, Michelle, so thank you.
Thanks. So we are moving IHBAA back to policy for additional edits. We do have one action on the table for IHBAA, and then the other 3 are for just info right now, the first readings. So any questions about those 3 or the one that we're proposing to remove?
So I'm not clear on IHBA, IHBI. What is the issue?
We did read on that.
It just as well IHBA.
Well, since it's just not bold, so IHCA, what's that last sentence? Our original policy, it is line 4.
So we're adding such.
Yes, starting with such.
IHBA and IHCA.
IHCA.
Yep.
We had the last sentence, it's not going on tell us something.
Such activities. Yes, starting at such activities.
Such activities.
And then online.
Reading list. Education comes to working. Oh, we're writing this down, so it's so important.
And then IHBI.
What's the other interest? Just go back to.
Let's table this one.
Okay, yeah, let's.
Well, we're not voting.
Oh, well, it's first reading, but we can come back with more information at our second reading. Apologies, Nikki.
All right, so we do have one of the.
Make a motion to remove IHBAA.
All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Jeff. All right. Next up, we have Appendix B Nominations.
Make a motion to give Appendix B Nominations.
Discussion? All those in favor of the motion, do so by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Right, motion passes. And retirement requests, which are in our calculus.
Yes, and we missed this, it should be an action item, not information, that we board makes a motion to accept the retirement request. Make a motion to accept the retirement request.
Second.
Take your pick, Reddit.
Randy was in there.
So just before you vote, it doesn't really. In the past, when we had town meeting for this, we used to speak about each of the retirees. You know, retiree, it's not who I'm talking about. I don't know if we do a great job of recognizing our retirees now that they're in SB2 school district. Like, whether we should be inviting them to a meeting and start off a meeting and just think that over. But I just feel like that kind of went away when from the annual town meeting to SB2. So I'm open to any ideas, but I do feel like, you know, maybe at the end of the school year, doing something to recognize our retirees.
I did hand deliver to from my out the board to all retirees. Towards the end of the career. Service, so you know.
Yeah, but I just.
Yeah, it's just, it's not the same.
Yeah. I do think I'd like to revisit that process, but instead of obviously at a big town meeting. But... All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Right, motion passes. Public communication and correspondence. All right, we have anything for non-public other than the meeting.
Make a motion to accept the non-public minutes for October 20.
Did somebody second?
Yep. I'll second. discussion? All those in favor of the motion, so by saying aye?
Aye.
Opposed? So accepted. Jeff?
Bonus.
Okay.